Oh my gosh, guys, everyone, welcome to Spill. Thanks so much for tuning in. We are unbelievably excited to introduce our first ever guest on the show today. She's one of the most incandescent, transformative, and exciting actors working in the industry. She's one of the stars of the number one Netflix show, The Last Kingdom, playing the unforgettable Lady Ellsworth. And she just recently landed back in the UK after 5 months in Tenerife, shooting a brand new series for Sky, A Town Called Malice, playing the role of Carly. If you've seen her work, you'll know that she is a real one. She's a real one. A real one.
She's ridiculous.
Aside from her already incredible career so far, she is universally known as one of the kindest, most caring humans by everyone fortunate enough to spend time with her. I also know firsthand she's a beautiful singer, and maybe lesser known, she can do an incredibly accurate impression of a baby crying. She did that with her mouth closed, and I genuinely thought... I thought something...
That's freaky!
That scared...
No, do it one more time. Bravo! That is freaky as well. Oh my gosh, Eliza, what are you doing?
She's rocking it.
Oh my...
I know, terrifying.
That's incredible.
I swear, it's the only reason I got let into drama school, because they were like, who can do something a bit weird? And I was like, I'll show you. And they were like, whoa! They're like, she'll be useful in the wings. You know
I set it up and it scared me.
I know.
I set that up and I literally jumped. That was unbelievable.
I'm very sorry.
Very accurate.
Too intense. Too much.
A truly beautiful soul. We are so honoured to welcome Eliza Butterworth to Spill. Woo!
Eliza Butterworth!
Oh my God, that was the loveliest intro of my whole life. I could die now. Angels, thank you so much for having me.
Oh my God, thanks so much for being here. How are you, my love? How's everything?
So good, thank you. The best for being with you guys.
Oh my gosh.
So nice.
As soon as you got up, like, we were kind of quietly sitting there, like quite chilled. And as soon as you were up, we're like, wow! The energy
we got really excited, really quickly.
100%. So you just got back from Tenerife, right?
Yes, from Tenerife. We were filming for 5 months there on a Sky project, which was really funky. That's set in the 80s, called A Town Called Malice. So it's our first season and it's really awesome, super unique, and I just loved it.
How was it? How do you find that? Because you were 5 months is a while, right? How do you find being away for that long and sort of being away from comforts?
That's such a good question, but I'm quite used to it now. It's become a funny thing. Like, I remember our longest shoot was 8 months in Budapest for season 5 of The Last Kingdom, and that was like really long. And what was scary about that was in the second lockdown, and in Hungary it was so strict. They had like 8 p.m. curfews. You weren't allowed in the country unless you had employment status, so it meant no visitors, no family, no friends, no partners. And like, it was just an extreme version. So because I then went through that, and I was like, okay, that's like the hardest, preps you for everything. So in a way, when Tenerife came around, which is gorgeous, like to be working somewhere like that, I just felt so grateful. Like it's weirdly, it's like one of the best parts actually being an actor, to go, you don't know where your life's going to go 1 week to the next, and all of a sudden you get a call going, okay, now you're going to move to wherever, and you're like, whoa, you know, that's the most exciting part in a way, you know, once you, or maybe if you get a job or whatever, that you can go to these places. I loved it, but it is hard to be away, and like, so I had family and friends visit, and my boyfriend, things like that, so that was just stunning. But yeah, it felt like more free that you could go in between, whereas in Budapest in season 5 of The Last Kingdom, that was hardcore.
A rough one.
It was rough, but we loved it, and we kind of had to create a family together. You had to not survive, because it was all
kind of though
work, but kind of with the emotional, psychological ups and downs of not being able to rely on the usual people you could see. It was like we had to create a family with us, and luckily they are the loveliest bunch of people in the world, so like it wasn't hard to have an amazing time. For sure. And yeah, it was wicked. It was, if anything, it made season 5 more like emotionally there. Like there's something about it, like we tapped into all kinds of things. She's getting low. Like who's getting low? Flow Rider. Is it Flow Rider?
Is it
Little
John?
No, that's
Little
John Payne.
Isn't he in it?
Get low.
Is it Flow Rider?
That's Steve Payne.
Oh my gosh.
Little John and shit.
Don't know me rap. Don't know me bloody rap.
You're always rapping, aren't you?
Yeah, I'll always. You know I love a lip sync.
I know you love
a lip sync. Yeah. I love a Skepta lip sync
battle at the end.
Oh my gosh, should we just?
New segment of the show.
Oh my God. Don't hear me.
She's ready.
She's ready.
So how, like, because obviously the Last Kingdom was some heavy stuff going on in Last Kingdom. As fans of the show obviously will know, and I really want to get into that in depth in a little minute. But like, Sean's big into it, right?
My little brother is a ridiculous fan. And he helped me kind of. No, seriously. And then because I was aware of the plotline and stuff, when Lucas said, I was like, oh my gosh, because also the character you play, there's so much depth, and especially you're looking at women at that time.
Yes.
And also how respected her view is, but how she delivers it to her husband, the king. And I went, okay, there's crazy dimensions.
That's so true. That's an amazing angle to look at it, actually. That's one of my favourite parts, I think, of The Last Kingdom, is that the female characters, there's no stereotypes in anyone. Nobody's sort of like hindered by their role or whatever their stereotypical role or position is. Everyone's actually doing all kinds of things. Like half of the females in the show are warriors, you know.
Yeah.
But I like that no one comments on it. No one says ever, oh, there's a woman in the battle. No, it's a given that we all do what we need to do, and it's beautiful. And then there are really powerful women. Like my character is the wife of King Alfred the Great, so she was extremely powerful, but also in a sense there's a couple of scenes where she acknowledges she has to know her duty, know her role within it, but within that she's playing the game, so she can also use that to her advantage in a sense. And then her daughter, who's Lady Ethelfled, in real life becomes like one of the first female leaders of Mercia. And I'll never forget Millie Brady, who's like the most fabulous person ever.
She's fantastic.
She's fantastic. Oh my gosh. And she plays my daughter. We're only like 6 months apart.
Yeah.
I'm like, that's my kid, and I've got grandkids. Oh, the whole thing, wild. But within it, we went to the celebration of Ethelfled in a place called Tamworth in England.
Okay.
And they had like a church, and they had like an honorary celebration of her because that's where she was buried. And they had this big like stained glass window, and we were all invited as like the royal family. So it was like David Dawson, who played King Alfred, Timothy Innes, who's my son, King Edward, and then Millie Brady. So as the royal family, we all rocked up to Tamworth like that. It was so cute. And then seeing this like stained glass window, she was like a knight. She had like the full gear on. She had like a sword, and that's in this window forever. And I was like, we looked up at it, and I was like, isn't that dope that you played that woman? And what an amazing image that is for little girls to see, and anyone, little boys, anyone to see that this woman was leading this whole kingdom, if you like, 1,000 years ago. It was 1,000 years ago, nearly 1,000
formation
years
of England.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sick. So when I think of it like that, I'm like, that's just amazing. She was like, yeah, it really hit her how that's such an important role to represent.
Yeah.
And they do a beautiful job in The Last Kingdom of, you know, expressing all of the women within it. And everyone is so entangled. Like the familial relationships are stunning, and that gets really wild by season 5. All the families like, but I love all that stuff. Give me an emotional scene any day. I'm like, yeah.
Well, I mean, I just watched, I think it's episode 5 of season 5, episode 4.
4, yeah,
when
right.
I don't think any spoilers because I mean it's been out for a minute, right? But there was some people, yeah. I mean, but like there's a scene with you in prayer that destroyed me. Destroyed me. I rewound it like 10 times.
Seriously,
there's a level of depth to it and nuance that is unattainable to a lot of actors, I think. And I was wondering, like, so many things about this, but like, firstly, what did you learn from her? Like from playing that character so long, and it's so in your body. It feels by the end of season 5.
Yeah.
What did you feel like? Or did you feel like, you know? I'm sure you did, but like, what did you feel like you learned from? How did her character imbue upon you?
That is such a stunning question. By the way, thank you so much. You're so kind. You're so sweet.
Oh, no, that's just facts. It's not like, I wish I was being kind. It's just true. I'm just like reading off them like, oh, that's true.
You're just the kindest angel, honestly. Because I really enjoy those emotional scenes because I feel like, I was actually saying this to my boyfriend today, I feel like such a maternal person. I don't have any children, but I had to, from season 1, I was 21 when I got the job, and I was already a mother in the show. So I already knew I had to get into the mentality of what's it like to be a mother. And I don't have kids. I'd love children of my own one day, but it's all just this sense of like tapping into something I'm not, but something I can recognize in my own mother, other mothers that I know. And I adore my mother. We have an amazing relationship. And I just literally look up to her. So if anything, I was drawing from what I know from her, like our dynamic and her like protectiveness, but then ferocity when needed, you know, like the discipline side. And this lady Elsa is such a ferocious person, especially by the end when she, you know, loses her husband. She's so alone in her fight then to, you know, keep these kingdoms together in the name of Alfred. There's so much pressure and responsibility. So even though I was loads younger than the characters, especially by the end, I was like, 62? I was like, whatever. I was like such a nana. I was like, damn. But I actually really love those roles because naturally as well, and this answers your question, Lucas, I'm quite a silly, like, woo, flighty person. And she's the complete opposite. She's like, boom. And there's this sense of like, oh, I have to draw on the complete opposite of myself to play this person. And I love that stuff. Yeah. I actually way prefer playing characters that are so far away, like age, physicality, voice, the whole transformation of it. Not to sound like mad pretentious, but
no, it's true.
I love it. And I can see a place to go with it. Whereas if I get an audition for like, it says like 29-year-old girl from, I'm like, I don't know what to do with that. What do I do with And I feel like I'm boring. I'm like, I don't know how to do that. I actually don't know how to play people my own age, which is weird. But the minute they're like 65-year-old battle axe from Saxon, I'm like, right, give me that. I just love it.
Why do you think that is? Like, because I feel like
I was going to ask if she hung out with either like your grandparents or older members of your family where... Okay, cool. And everybody in this room has probably been... Dude, you know when you're at a family thing and sometimes you get a bit excited and sometimes an older member of the family might be like, children, this is a big people's conversation, but you are taking in everything that they're saying. And you with your cousins, you'll make fun or do impressions. And I sat and I went, she's been hanging out with older people.
Yeah, that is exactly bang on, Sean. You're a genius.
No, no. You do the same thing. Like, no.
Yeah. Because I'm an only child. My parents had me when they were quite older. Like my mum was like 41 and my dad was 45.
Okay.
So I was the only one they could kind of have. And so I meant I grew up with a lot of adults. So even on the street, I grew up in Lincoln, like a really sweet street. Like the youngest person on that street, apart from me, was like, you know, someone who's like 56. So literally, they were my homies. Like hanging out with people
like playing droughts and stuff like
yeah, on the streets, like chess. And so like in that sense, I like grew up around adults. So I was really good at talking to adults. And have like almost an affinity with them in a sense and a high respect for them. And there's something about that particular role where it required such like piety, defiance, strength and ferocity and intelligence and but like in a way that's almost like she doesn't care what anyone else thinks of her as I am so self-conscious. Like I naturally care so much what people think of me and I'm such a natural people pleaser. So it was actually such a relief to get to play someone like that and go, oh, I have that within me. And this is the one place I can express it without feeling bad because it's my job. So in a way, I'm allowed to be vicious because sometimes she's nasty to people. She's sentencing Uhtred to death in the first 3 seasons, left, right and centre. And she can be so callous. But I would never naturally even think the way she does. So to then tap into that for a job and to have this creativity is liberating. Exactly. It's so liberating. And that's why I loved that role and I loved what they did with it. By the end, they just made up all kinds of crazy stuff to do because she's no longer in the books. Like after King Alfred's death, she sort of goes off and we, you know, assume maybe she's gone to a nunnery. She's obviously, followed religion, followed her duty. But within this sort of screenplay of it, they were like, well, fuck it, we'll do whatever we want. So they did. And they just like wrote this crazy stuff. And then by season 5, I like kill someone. Not to like ruin it, but like there's all kinds of mad stuff that pops off. I just would never imagine this character to do. So I'm so lucky and grateful that they saw, you know, whatever in me to go, okay, we're going to allow her to play this role even further and actually she's going to become like a hero character. And I loved it. I was like, if anything, this is going to also sound really pretentious. I sort of
not at all. None of that hit. It's just
and it's about acting. And Lucas, you're an actor, like you know exactly. Like it's just. And Sean, are you an actor as well? Because I know you're the most phenomenal singer I've ever heard in my life. You don't hear Sean sing. You have no idea.
Because of obviously you guys, I get to just chill out and take in lots of information, and I like to watch in depth because because I think sometimes for the things that us as creatives look for out of life, you're required to observe more than you say.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so it's just sometimes kind of, I think that what you do is you're the greatest storytellers on the screen, and you get to put across people's messages, their stories, their experiences in a way that is beautiful and is excellent. And so if you can sometimes just take it in, and so Lucas was doing a tape for something quite prestigious. Wow. And Eliza, I remember talking to him a couple of days before. This guy, Eliza.
This guy.
And I said to him, this is how I know you're moving into like what I call a space of excellence. Had already like hired the costume that fit the period and the time. Like was going to shut himself off like in terms of phone and digital stuff like 5 hours before he did it, just so he could be like, no, this is the time period, this is where I am. And I just went,
love that.
To commit to that level of excellence, you really understand the nature of the message that the person's trying to give.
Yeah.
And it's why I enjoyed your performance, especially in The Last Kingdom, and even talking to my brother about it, was because you encapsulated something that women naturally have but weren't allowed to show.
Yeah.
And I watched it evolve over the seasons, and then it gave me an idea into how she is as a woman, and how through her performance she can inspire a whole bunch of young women to a level of excellence in preparation before you even hit the stage. Before the camera rolls.
Sure.
No, but
So
do you
sweet.
understand what I'm saying? And so when a person is that committed, and that's what my opening offer is,
Yeah.
then you deserve my attention. I can sit here and I can appreciate it and understand, even though I don't live in your world or work in your world in that way. It's, you know, it's comparative in terms of what we do music, but obviously it's melody and it's sound, it's band, it's rhythm.
Well, but Shean has an unbelievable ability to discern information from stories.
Yeah.
Like to maybe it's because you're so well versed in like scripture and stuff, but there's an ability that you have that.
It's the nicest thing you've ever said to
Oh,
me.
brother. It's on the back of the nice thing you said to me as well, bro. We just trade balls of water around here.
No,
watching this program,
incredibly
I'm
though.
like,
But for real though, because there's something where that Shean does where he can like see any sort of subtext immediately in a story and discern how what that's supposed to be saying from the writer's perspective. It's really fascinating, which I think makes you a great writer, Rob. But yeah, like
And a genius. Genius.
Everyone in this room is a genius, all right?
Yeah, genius.
No. But yeah, no, like I want to talk about what you said about the role of like the arc of Lady Ellsworth in the show. Towards the end of season 5, she's confronted with her faith in a way that I found really interesting, because faith's such a huge part of her being.
Yes.
And that scene, I think the same scene I mentioned before, where she's like, I'm trying to make him listen. After that major tragedy happens.
Yes.
Like, how did you reconcile that? How do you approach a scene like that? And also, what's your prep in general? Like, you get the script land on your emails?
Absolutely.
And where do you start?
You ask the best questions, can I just say? You two are. I am.
You have no idea how
loving
invested
it.
I am
I
in-
just stay here till like 9 p.m.
As long as you
because-
want,
Honestly,
man.
this is running all day.
It's just so nice. It's wonderful. They're amazing. Oh my God, your question's amazing. First of all, the preparation side of things, like, I think as well, because I've done The Last Kingdom now for nearly 8 years, when I put it all together, it's been like 8 years of filming, or nearly. By season 5, in a weird way, I know this sounds mad, but because I know her so well and I don't have to try too hard. And it's funny, in the first couple of seasons, I actually I think I've changed my acting style from season 2 to 3. In season 1 and 2, I'd never really done much filming. I was so petrified of being too big, because I went to a drama school where it was all theatrical. You know, it was like Shakespeare, Chekhov, performed to the back of the theatre. So I was massive. I was like huge, like, darling, hello. You know, and I think I rocked up on set on day 1 of season 1 of The Last Kingdom, and he was like, just take it down. And the director was like,
With
yeah,
a scarf, like sweating a scarf over his shoulders.
And I was like, hello, wonderful. And like my face was doing all this, you know, and I didn't know how to bring it down. And so I brought it down so much that actually I feel like I just froze. And so all my lines are sort of delivered like this. And I was so conscious, don't move your face, don't move your face. And now I am like, if you see me in season 5 versus season 1, I'm like, you know, I almost feel like as long as you're truthful with what you're saying, why, actually you believe it. And I started really, I know, again, I'm not going to sound pretentious, but I love actors that give a lot, like a lot. And to say something recently, I don't know if you guys have seen Bullet Train, this new movie with like Aaron Taylor Johnson and
No,
Brad
I
Pitt.
haven't seen it yet.
Well, Aaron Taylor Johnson's one of my favourite actors, and he's kind of resurfaced again, and he is mad in this. He's absolutely
Just
bonkers.
huge.
He's like fucking talking like that, and he's like, and his face is always, and I believe everything, and I'm like, I find it really entertaining. I'm in love with the character because I'm just like, how fascinating. He's really cool. He's dynamic, but I believe everything. So this whole notion of like, oh, you have to be really still to be a film actor, I don't think is true, because I love people like Joe Pesci from like you know Goodfellas and all that kind of stuff. Big performances, big voices, big, you know, not having to draw things down. So in season 1 and 2, I was like, okay, I've never really done film acting before. I have to be so conscious, don't move your face. And now, by season 5, I'm like, ah! And I actually know the character so well that the prep isn't as strenuous. Like I know exactly. Because I've even, you know, you have to then watch yourself. Some people don't watch themselves, but it takes me a while to watch myself. I get really freaked out. I like hate it. First, I turn the sound off because I can't bear my own voice. But weirdly, as Lady Ellsworth, my voice is different. Yeah. Although Lady Ellsworth, she's sort of down here, so she talks like that. So in a way, I don't have to like be as freaked out kind of thing, because I and I go to the baby thing again. That's creepy.
Oh my God.
It's so creepy. It does get creepier. But yeah, with all that.
Halloween money, by the way.
Amazing.
Amazing. Come out just like, yeah.
I creeped out many a library.
Bet you have.
With that noise. Many a library, many a supermarket, like just randomly in an aisle.
Really
Wow!
impressive.
So creepy.
Really impressive. I can't remember my head around it.
No, it's mad. But you're as like even a musician. I know you're an actor and musician, Lucas. You can do everything. It's just sense of like you can use your voice for stuff. As can Sean. I mean, it's just like. I love like voice stuff. I know I'm going on like loads of tangents here, but
no.
in terms of like preparation, because I'd play that role for years, and yeah, I almost know exactly what beat I'm going to play, especially when it comes to emotional scenes. Funnily enough, actually, for that scene you mentioned in the chapel, I learnt the wrong scene. So I learnt the first ever version, which was the read-through version, which you get months and months in advance. So when the script writers first kind of arc out the whole entire story for everyone, they put out all the read-through drafts. And then after a while, you get 6, 7, renewed versions.
Salmons and pinks. And,
salmons and pinks, they like make them like weird names,
Colour
like golden
coded.
rod.
Yeah.
They're like the blue pages.
Baseball there.
It's honestly, it's bonkers, isn't it? And then you get an email
It's so
going, it's the
frustrating.
salmon pages. Salmon pages.
Salmon
The
page.
hell?
I just learned the blues.
Yeah, exactly. So like with that, I didn't know which one to reference, and I just had the read-through draft as a printout copy. Completely forgot it said read-through draft on it. So I knew that this big scene was coming. I'd like lost my, not to spoil anything, but like it's a big loss in the family, like horrifically devastating. So I was like, I will learn this one way in advance, because usually sometimes if it's just like a little court scene, I might even learn it like 2 nights before, not be like uber funny about it, because otherwise I can get too, I don't know, hyped out or something.
Oh, okay, yeah. Interesting.
But with something like that, especially if you have to be emotional, you can't be thinking, oh my God, what's my line? Because you have to be so in
your
the world
body
of that,
and
and letting it all out, because that's the only thing you want to then be thinking about on the day. So I learned this read-through draft, and I was like, on it. Everyone was testing me. I was like, yes, I'm so ready. Walked up to the thing, and I was like, and everyone was very quiet and very like respectful. On a scene like that, everyone's quite,
no one's looking at you.
No one looks at you. So I certainly don't give a damn. I'm like, hey, and everyone's looking at me like, you should calm the fuck down, because you're about to be crying your ass off. And I'm like, but yeah, walked up. Anyway, it was amazing. Alexander Draymond, who plays Uhtred, and it dawned on me that day, it was the first time our 2 characters are ever alone together. Not in the, and we're the OGs of the show, along with Breeder, who, so it was just me, him and Emily from season 1, like the absolute OGs of the show. And I was like, oh, we've never been in a room together, because our characters notoriously like hate each other. Apart from within season 4, there's sort of like redemption for Lady Elsa, then they sort of connect a little bit, although I think he thinks she's a bit of a nutter, but like there's a bit of forgiveness there. And anyway, by season 5, they've both lost somebody that they both loved the most, like the dearest. So it's like the first ever like, oh, I know exactly how you feel, because my heart's been ripped out just like yours over the same person.
Bridge, doesn't it?
Builds a whole bridge.
A bridge.
And it made her realize, actually, I need these people, and I need him as much as I shunned him for years. I need this man. And so it's such a stunning scene. Anyway, he's there, all respectful and loving. He's one of the most extraordinary actors I've ever known in my life. Alexander Draymond, oh my gosh, he could do anything. That man, and talking about emotional scenes, he could do anything. Like
he's just there, isn't he? He's just present.
Phenomenal. And like the hardest working person, doing all the fighting, the horse riding, all the lines he has to learn. I mean, it's just non-stop. So anyway, he gets there, uber professional. He's learnt the right bloody draft. I didn't even dawn on me that I'd learnt this read-through draft. So anyway, we start just rehearsing the lines. Anyway, and I'm going, what I'm saying, and I hope I hope God is listening, whatever the heck I say. And he's looking at me like, and he starts going, what are you talking about? And I was like, what do you mean? He's like, well, that is not any of the lines that's written here. And I was like, what are you talking? I've been learning this for weeks. What do you mean? So now I'm panicking, and then the director comes over and goes, yeah, Eliza, I'm not quite sure what you've learnt, darling, but it's not this, and so you're going to have to really think about, and if this is like a 4-page scene, I'm like, I can't learn this. It was the last scene of the day. We only had like an hour and a half to shoot it or something like that. There was only 2 people, so it wasn't going to take long to shoot if we got it right. But there's me now going, I don't know any of these words, and I was freaking out, because this is the one scene I thought I have to nail it, because to do justice for that character being lost and everything, I was like, and I nearly burst into tears right then and there. My heart was like, and I was like, because I love that show more than anything. I care about it so much, like, and I've done it for so many years. So I was like, as if I'm gonna fail now, and all I did was work so hard on those other lines. So anyway, thank God the producer then came over and was like, right, you've obviously learnt them to a T. And he went, weirdly, I've just looked at that read-through draft, which is 7 drafts too late, but that's fine. And he's like, I actually weirdly prefer some of the lines. He's like, well, how about we compromise? Let's make a hybrid. And he was like, learn a few of them right now. And I was like, oh my God. And the thing is, and Lucas, with filming, there's about 100 people in the room watching you. Everyone's watching you. And it's just, especially when there's just two other actors, it's just everyone's looking at me and Alex, and we were like a goldfish bowl, and time is money, so they're all thinking about. I hope she learns them lines
and stuff. Like, they're not always as interested as you wish they were, sort of thing. You know what I mean? So like,
absolutely, and I just thought, oh my god, the pressure. So I learned like it was like sort of 10 new lines, which is a lot considering I knew I had to cry on a few of the lines. Like, I had to be technical about it. It's like, I'm going to cry here. Sometimes I don't know when it's going to happen, but other times I'll measure it. It's quite weird.
Yeah,
makes me think like I'm a sociopath or something. I'm going to cry right there on that word. Psycho. Yeah. But with that, I if anything, it just threw me into the sense of like, okay, you've just got to be listening to yourself, because otherwise this is going to be a nightmare. And weirdly, I got through each take, but I was then like kicking myself, going, effed up that word. And okay, so it was like not the easiest scene to film in that sense, even though I'd learned it to a T. It was the hybrid version.
Oh, interesting.
So when people say, oh, I love that scene, I'm thinking, thank God I sort of sold it for what it was, because I honestly left that day and thought, I've left that. I was like, I even like said to Millie, I was like, I'm so sorry. That scene where I'm like,
mourning.
It's just not, but
not to spoil, but they all know.
They know that.
The fans are watching this.
All right. But that sense of like, oh, I think I failed you too, because also we're such a family in that show. Everyone cares about each other's scenes, and like, there are so many intense emotional scenes, even all the Danes, like they're my favorite stuff. When you see all the Danes getting into theirs, I'm like, oh my God. So you're so proud of each other, and you don't want to be the one to let the side down, even though no one does, because everyone just does the wickedest job. I think in a way I like that we're pressuring each other, not even each other, ourselves, like that, because we care.
Yeah.
So if you're hard on yourself, you know that you care. So that was just a weird one for that one scene with all the prep and all the
but that's so interesting.
It all went out the window for a second, and then I just
Yeah, but I almost wonder if there's something to that, because I found, and maybe you relate to this, like, and maybe everyone listening relates to this in some way in their own like line of work, that when like, well, maybe performance is a bit different, but like when I feel completely out of control, is usually when the best stuff happens.
Yeah,
because I can't get my way anymore, because this is happening for real, and it's happening now. And it's like, I wonder if that's somewhat what is so palpable in that scene, is that the energy is so like, this is happening right now. Like it brings you to like, I remember like sat closer to the screen when that's happening. I was like, oh my God.
You're so sweet.
But honestly, that's so fascinating.
It's crazy. And I love those kinds of stories where you think, okay, what is happening behind the scenes? How was that actor? What were they actually thinking about during that thing? And I was just thinking, don't forget your line. And it's true, it was then more raw, because when like my eyes are shifting, I genuinely don't know what I'm going to say next. I don't know. Yeah. Because obviously as an actor, when you're performing a naturalistic scene, you want it to look like you don't know what you're saying next, because we don't, as humans, know quite what we're going to say next. We look around and we gather our thoughts. You don't want to look too like you know it, but I really didn't know what God, something or other, and somebody's died. I just like, it was crazy.
But neither does she, I guess that's also because neither does she though, right? Like she's that might be the first time in her life she's really starting to like vocalize her faith in like, why isn't God listening? Like she's praying and praying and praying for her daughter to survive.
Absolutely.
And it doesn't happen.
Absolutely.
And she's left at wit's end.
Yeah.
And so maybe that it's so funny how those things.
She steps out of duty.
Yes,
that's what it.
And the vulnerability comes out too, because for such a stoic figure, someone who's had to hold their own and be so fierce, and someone to be like revered, but also to be feared as well. Like people look up at her and think, okay, I'm not going to mess with that kind of thing. And there she is on her knees, broken, holding the hand of the guy she used to think was the her worst enemy. Is now like the only form of support she can even rely on. And so nice to see the vulnerability, but then also the question of, hold on, I've been so stoic for you for so long, and now at my most time of need, where are you? And everything's been taken from me. I really have nothing left, and now you want me to carry on. How can I serve somebody that doesn't, so it's so interesting. And I find faith so interesting and amazing. And so to have written that within the script was so cool of them, because obviously back then religion really was it. That's all people knew, and the church was everything. Not to get all into religion, but it was so fascinating that at the time it really ran with the monarchy, and so everything was like the royal family, and it's just so fascinating. But they did a beautiful job at even depicting like the Danes and their religion, because they believe in the gods like Thor and Odin. For
sure.
And I love that there's that beautiful balance of both of those things, and how are they against each other sometimes, but actually by the end, how do they intertwine? How do they help one another? And it's true, because that really happened, where a lot of like Danish lords even said, okay, we'll compromise and we'll settle here if we don't and so in a way they were able to respect one another's faith and carry on as normal, and that's how then the rest of England was created. So history lesson.
But something I just wanted to jump in on something that I said, what I really like, because I loved history at school, like loved history, loved that period, loved the Tudors, loved everything about that, and I felt like in her weakest moment I saw your greatest strength.
Yeah.
And the juxtaposition that her living out of her faith allowed her a moment to be so broken. Do you understand?
Yeah.
That what it did was it took it away from this thing where, okay, cool, it was very classist, if that makes sense. So if you're rich, you can kind of have access to certain things and you can read and you can have sex and whatever else.
Yeah.
And you have someone here that basically in a scene with someone that believes completely opposite to her.
Yeah. Awesome.
That union in that moment allowed the most honest conversation her character's probably been able to have.
Ever.
Yeah.
In the presence of someone that does not believe what she believes. Bro, I just sat there and went, but I kind of feel like that's
Fire in the booth.
That's the practical, but that should be the practical nature of what faith was. And that's why I enjoyed your performance, because I was just like, it's dealing with so many subtexts in terms of also women in both of your fields now coming to the fore the way they are. I felt like Last Kingdom, like you said, 8 years of it was one of the first shows that put women in that position.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Unapologetically, and went, watch us carry this.
I mean, Breeder from the very beginning. I'm watching it now. I watched it the first few episodes the other day because I wanted to see your introduction for the first time. Because I was curious what your first lines were.
And I had a beard. Because my hairstyle was, we have to talk about the hairstyle. I had a beard. Like, they tied it. I always call it the beard. Iconic. Hideous, but iconic. It did its job.
You wore it well. I mean, I think you wore it well. But.
I was like, damn. But yeah, Breeder from the get-go.
Yeah, no, they never, like you said earlier, they never point to like for a woman. You know what I mean? Like, which I think is the real marker of actual inclusivity, and we talk about this quite a bit. They're like, if you should be able to write a script, and more often than not, obviously, there's a whole thing about erasure of identity and culture and whatnot. But like, you should be able to write a script and pass it out to nearly anyone, and it should still play. Because if the character's three-dimensional enough, it shouldn't really matter unless it's like, topical or narrative driven.
Yeah.
The dialogue, like, the character should be well written enough that anyone can imbue anyone. Anyone can imbue it with their own take. Yeah. And like, I feel like that's what Last Kingdom does really well. Like, you could read Breeder's and Dutro's lines, like, and you wouldn't know what the genders were. Yeah. For the most part.
Absolutely.
For the most part. Like, which I think is a real testament to the writing and the intention at that time. 2015, that was pre Me Too, right?
Yeah.
And pre.
I think.
So have you noticed
yes, it was.
any sort of shift in the industry from a practical being on set level post Me Too?
Oh, absolutely. I think I remember we actually came back, I think it was season 2, we came back for the show, and it's a very male-dominated show, although the loveliest men in the entire world, you've all become like brothers to me, so they were naturally the most respectful people you could ever work with, so it wasn't, we never had really anything like that with our cast or anything, but it was just a sense of something did change within the way you maybe responded to people physically, like outside of work, or even just, on set, certain comments that usually would be said about somebody's dress or somebody's this and that, all of a sudden people were hyper conscious of saying those things, which at first was probably quite odd, because it felt like, you had, as soon as you started speaking, you had to kind of stop yourself. But that's in a way good, because then everyone goes through this learning curve. Yes, it's hard at first, but then the minute you start to realize why it's so important and actually the way it affected people before, you start to think, oh my gosh, and you have so much respect for, the way a workplace should be, so that everybody's safe, everybody's comfortable, everyone just feels good to do a good job and never feels like, they have to in any way be, I don't know the word, but like, sort of like looked at for their gender or whatever, their aesthetic
sure,
or
like
something. Objectified, exactly,
yeah.
objectified. So, it was a really interesting thing to come back into season 2 for that, and it being quite a male-heavy show. But we were always amazing with that.
Yeah.
But it was really also cool to know about intimacy coordinators, which I think has also come off the back.
They're
of
amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, it's crazy now that wasn't a thing. Like,
I know.
There's always been a stunt.
About
Did you know about intimacy? So, bro, I
was about to ask you, like, intimacy.
Yeah. So the same way there's a stunt coordinator. Sorry to steal you.
No.
But the same way there's a stunt coordinator, there's now an intimacy coordinator. So if you're doing a sex scene and it used to be directors would be like, yeah, take top off. Yeah, just take top off. You'll be right. Take top off. And actors who might be their first job or something, they'd be like, well, and obviously they're rolling, and especially back in there, they're burning films. Like, oh, I guess I'll just have to. Okay, fine. And then afterwards, it's like, well, that wasn't my contract. I don't have a nudity rider. I don't have a, And like now, if someone goes, take top off as a person whose entire job is to go, sorry, what the fuck did you just say? Cut. We're gonna go. And like, they have a whole red zone, green zone thing, right?
Yeah.
Where it's like, you can't touch you here, can't touch you here, can't touch you here.
Okay.
And it's like, it's all. But that's like obvious stuff when you say it. It's like, of course. Why was it ever any other way?
Yeah, it's crazy to think that like all kinds of sex scenes back in the, like, the 90s movies and stuff was just
what the hell was going
anyone
on?
under the covers doing
what scary stuff was going on.
Whatever.
Well, but it's like,
hopefully not, but it's scary that was even just an option kind of thing. So now it's so nice to see, and it's comfortable for everyone, because it could be really weird on a set. You've got, again, a room full of 50 people all looking at you, and there you are having to do whatever, and it's terrifying enough as it is. And then if you have to remove clothing, which is so personal, and like, I've never done anything like that, but I can imagine it's terrifying. And it's the stuff, like, if you do that in theatre, it feels like it vanishes, because it's live performance and it goes. Whereas when you do it on TV, that's recorded forever and ever on there. Ever, literally. And that's it. And so you sort of think, oh my gosh, Mildred 2000. But there's that sense of, as much as you could feel really confident at the moment, but then years, in the future, you sort of think, oh my god, that's still there. Oh my gosh. But then on top of that, as you say, like to have to do it with another person, or to touch another person, it's so nice to know that actually you're being so safe, and everybody's comfortable, and everyone has to work out their boundaries, and also like a physical fight, because you would never not rehearse a fight or know exactly where you're going to stab someone or touch someone. Why would it be the same if you're grabbing someone or kissing them? You've got to know what's going to happen, because maybe back in the day we're like, just go with the flow, and that's so natural, and but then that's just odd for everyone. When do you stop? Where is the boundary? So I'm so glad that that's all in place, and again, probably alien for certain people at first, but my gosh, now that we're now in the thick of it, thank goodness that's thinking. Now we would never think twice.
Yeah, exactly. There's no going back on that.
Yeah.
I think especially for actors who are such weird, sort of like affectionate, strange,
exactly.
You're sort of always in Disneyland on a set as well. So like the lines of reality just get blurred in general.
Yeah.
So like, and this isn't to excuse anyone's inappropriate behavior, obviously, but like you're already in this strange like. There's no other. I don't know if there's any other job that causes that level of intimacy that quickly, or creates that level of intimacy that quickly. Like you do sometimes one day on set, and you're like, I love these people so much. It's really interesting, and
you have to act like you do, because like I never forget, somebody told me this hilarious story of like, only in acting will you like in the makeup truck, you've got the script and it says, your son dies in your arms in the scene. You may have never even met the bloke that plays his son. All of a sudden he rocks up in the makeup truck. You all right, mate? Yeah, we're all right, mate. 1 hour later, my son is dying in your arms. You have to make it believable that you love this person. You probably don't really know his name, but you have to like get yourself in that emotional place immediately. Yeah. And so no wonder we shift into that place of like the closeness with each other, because we have to for the job. Just like, with me having, people play my children or whatever, and whatever happening to them, I have such protection over them. And in fact, I used to say to Millie and Tim, who played my kids, I have a natural maternal protection over them, even though we're the same age. Yeah. I felt that for them outside of work, which is so weird, but I gained that through going, oh, it's my job to tap into those places. As silly as it sounds, but you kind of have to, and you have to do it quick.
I don't think it's silly.
You got to sell that, and everyone has to believe that you felt that way about whoever.
Yeah,
children, your partner, your whatever. So.
Well, that's one thing I think must fascinate people so much about the show. Like, is that you say you're the same age as Millie and Tim, right? But like, I think people must be shocked by that in real life, because you're so beautiful in real life and so like young. But I think people but you bring a depth, like your eyes are almost deceived when you watch the show, because you're like, there's a depth to that human 100%. That they've been through so much that the youthfulness of you, although it's there in like a aesthetic way still, you can't undo that.
Like fades somehow.
It fades somehow. You can't see it anymore. Somehow like the older lady is really, but that's a testament to you as an actor, and I'm so interested in like, what's your process, if you have a process? Some people have a really solid like, this is my craft, this is my toolkit, and this is what I do, and some people just sort of get the script and then say, cool, what's your...
I'll say I'm definitely more the person who does all the research, who goes, how am I going to change my physicality? How am I going to change my voice? Then I'll feel completely like this new person. Whereas these are the kind of actors, I wish I could also tap into this, but I just don't feel like I'm comfortable with it yet. The kind of actors who can get a script and almost not play it like themselves, but play it close to their own personality. And it's so naturalistic and it's so cool and it's so effortless. I'm the other side. I'm the like churning out character. Like I love a character actor. Like Imelda Staunton is like a wonderful and older actress. She's phenomenal, and she's not older. She's like amazing, but she is like someone that I really, really look up to because she can transform into anything. Like Helena Bonham Carter can. Yeah. Kate Blanchett can. There's so many people. I love Julie Walters. That they can just literally. Another one, Jessica Chastain.
She's amazing.
God, she can do anything.
She's anything. And again, Molly's Game is my favorite. Have you seen Molly's Game?
No, I haven't seen Molly's Game. Have you seen The Eyes of Tammy Faye?
Oh my god, she's so good.
Like another person. You're like, what? And I sort of think, I look up to people like that and I go, I want to do that kind of work. That's my favorite kind of stuff. Yeah. So in terms of process, I'll think about creating a brand new person rather than go, oh, how is it close to me? Yes, they'll naturally happen, but I also go, okay, this person's a mother, and now she's a grandmother, and now she's super religious, and I'm gonna have to tap into all these things that I'm just not, and gain them so much and feel so comfortable with them that I can sell it that I am that, like it's natural to me, even though it's not. And I will say, I find, and I was saying earlier about like the voice, I find if you change your voice, it does so much to your body, and like completely because I feel like I have quite a naturally sort of squeaky voice. It's not like super weighty. It's not that heavy. But then she has a very sort of down here. It's very weighty, sort of. Your whole body goes when you hear a voice that goes. Boom, you just sort of think, okay, so that's an authority figure. I'm not, and I'm not. She is. So that helps me go like shift. Bam, right into it. Same with physicality. Like I'm very like blah, 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 and she's very still. So I go, okay, that person's very streamlined, very she's not wibbly wobbly all over the place. Boom, precise. The way I hold my hands and David Dawson, who played King Alfred, is again one of the most magnificent actors on the planet. He does that because he in real life is a lot different, and now he's playing this really just quite terrifying character at times. Very intelligent, very ferocious, and just so like oozing in power. And you kind of look at him and you go, oh my gosh, it was wild. In fact, I think I know that watching him, because I was always in scenes with him. If I was in a scene, I was always next to my husband. So in the beginning scenes, it was always like, if Ellsworth was written in, it's because she's next to Alfred in a Witten scene, or she's, the banquet scene or whatever. So then I'd get to watch David all day long. He also went to my drama school as well. So we sort of knew each other a little bit. At different years, but we sort of knew the same people. So I always looked up to him anyway. And then like I'd watch him and things, I go, bloody hell. And again, he'd shift, his voice would shift, and he all of a sudden just hold himself in a complete different way and like look up, and I go, fucking hell. It's like somebody else entered the room. It wasn't David anymore. And I'm like, oh my God, where's my friend gone? That's crazy. And like watching him in takes, because when the camera's not on you can just, and I would often just watch him. I should be acting myself
my favourite part about acting is getting to watch actors. So, especially.
And you learn so much. So from a filming perspective, I didn't know what I was really doing the first couple of seasons, and then watching him shift, and I go, oh, I can do a bit of that. I can sit more in my voice. I can play more with my physicality. I can, if I just trust in that better, then before I know it, I'll believe in it. And the more I believe in it, they'll believe in it. And, and that kind of happened in a way, because I'm way more comfortable in the last season than the first. So, like a million miles out. And also just growing up, gaining wisdom, you can understand characters better. You can put yourself in their shoes better. You have more empathy for them. The older you get, you can see more scenarios where you go, oh, I would have done that, or what would I have done differently, or whatever. But so for me, I'm like heavy prep, heavy research, heavy voice, physicality, mainly voice. And I love a voice. My mother's American, so I grew up with an American accent in my house all day long. So she like talks like this. She's like, what the hell? That sounds a bit more LA. She's a bit more like, what are you doing? What's going on? So by hearing that all day long, and my dad's from Manchester, so he sort of talks like that. I'd be like, what the heck? So for me, voices are important. Yeah, I love voices.
Did you land on the voice before the audition, or in it, like, or was that process when you started shooting?
I definitely did a bit of an accent. I knew it was RP. In fact, I have quite a funny story about the audition, because I was a young actor. Because we met, Lucas, in 2015.
On that Guitar Hero.
By the way, we have to talk about that, because
we have to talk about that.
So Lucas and I met in 2015 on Guitar Hero. We were both singing.
Yeah, doing like ADR on the crowd, right? Like singing like when the crowd are singing, that's us singing. Right?
And I remember it was like the Black Keys go.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah.
So good.
For days on end.
Days on end.
Great story.
It was
No warm-up.
it was so bonkers. We were like, what is going? We'd look around and be like, is this real?
Is this happening?
It's a job.
That's one of the first jobs I ever got paid for.
Same.
Oh, really?
Same.
Okay.
Oh yeah, fresh out jobs. I was pumped for that job. I was like, I'm going to be a guitar
I thought I made it.
hero.
Yeah, I was like, I'm a guitar hero now. This is it. And we met in the little green room. And there were like 30 odd people, loads of people. And we met in the green room. And as I remember, tell me if this is wrong, right? But as I remember it, I walked in, right? And I was like, hey, how you doing? I'm Liza. I'm Lucas. I'm Liza. And then you were like, I can do an impression of a baby.
Probably would have been me when I was 21 years old.
Yeah, like if I remember correctly, there was no like preamble to that.
I've ever heard in my life.
What a nutter.
And then I was like, come on. And then I filmed you doing it, and I was like, that's the best thing I've ever heard in my life. And I was like,
and the strangest.
I tried to find it for this. I tried to find it. I couldn't
Bro,
find
you're
it.
so
It might be in our Facebook chat somewhere way back when.
Someone please find it.
Oh
That
yeah,
has to
honestly,
get played at
it's
that point.
yeah, I know, right? It's just like Eliza's sitting there,
Weird.
and I was like, I'm gonna love this person forever. Like, I don't want to ever lose this person in my life. It's great. Like it was really
But like, I look to you as well, like for like both of you with your voices. Like, how do you guys feel about when you can shift into your singing and everything? What's that feel like?
Do you know what? It's okay, cool. So I feel like I live in two spaces.
Mm-hmm.
There's a space I live when I'm doing it for myself.
Yeah.
And then that's a different kind of vibe because I can create that universe.
Yeah.
I have power to speak whatever I want into life at any point.
Yeah.
When I do, if say I'm working for Craig or whatever, I also love that world because I'm given space.
Yeah.
It's like a gardener.
Well,
And they open the gate and they go, what do you want to do? And I'm like, well, a flower bed maybe? Yeah. And he's that kind of guy. Bro, listen. And it was funny because we met up as a band the other day and we were around the table and he was playing some music.
It's Craig David if anyone is.
And
I love him so much.
No, just
that's my
reference,
boss.
as a reference point, not to name drop, just so you can follow the story.
You're
seriously,
epic.
no. And around the table, and I didn't even realise, I just started kind of singing along. It's because he was playing the project and stuff, and I just started kind of, there was this one song, and it took me elsewhere. So I'm at the table, and like, I'm kind of like, okay, cool, everybody's
And you're like, rewind.
No, you know. And I just wanted to, it was just wicked, it was this slow jam called Say Yes. It's a beautiful record, like a beautiful record. And everything going on in it, I'm just like, oh my gosh. So I'm just kind of, ooh. And then Kwame's like,
MD, right?
MD. Kwame kind of looks over, he's like, and I'm like, whatever, Kwame, you're going to take that. He goes, no, it's R&B, it can stay. And at that stage, I'm sitting there, I'm going, that's probably the perfect summarization of my job. That although you have someone that is very clear about their vision and what they want to do, they allow space for those that they have given room to be able to be and express.
Yeah.
So I feel like when I'm doing stuff for myself with like, you know, some of the projects and stuff that you've heard, it's easy because I can do whatever I want to do in that moment. And so I have total creative power and autonomy. When I'm working, say for Craig, it's the same kind of feeling, but in a different way because you're given a position where you manage what you have.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So
Definitely.
in that moment, I see where the lines are, I know where the boundaries are, but he'll allow me to feel the full potential of that space and it not be anything more than going, I just want to feel what you have because everybody that I have in my band is unique and fit to purpose.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Big
So
time.
you don't necessarily go in kind of anxious or feeling trepidation because you're like, okay, cool. It's either going to work or it's not.
Yeah.
And if it works, wicked. And if it doesn't, it's just be like, okay, cool, maybe not that one, but come back with the next one.
Yeah.
It requires someone with like,
And you never feel less than.
No.
That's the big thing.
yeah.
That there is no difference between when I'm doing it for myself and when I'm doing it, say, for him or anybody else that I may be working for, that you are given that freedom to be. And I think that's why we do what we do.
Yes.
Because the way that Eliza will tell a story, the way you will tell a story is totally unique to how you see.
Yeah.
Makes sense? And I think perception in our job, perception in our field and what we do is everything because it allows you to see within instead of just the external of what you want to project to people.
And there's no right or wrong. Well, it's not science. It doesn't have to be factual. Like, you know, if you're feeling something, you go with that flow or whatever it is. And what's the word when something's subjective as well?
Yeah.
Not everyone's going to like everything that you do, or the way, you know, for like me as an actor, not everyone's going to like my style of performance or whatever. And I have to like know that that's okay, as long as I feel, you know, really good within it and I've done my duty towards, you know, as we were talking earlier, storytelling or whatever. And you feel music, like actually, if I feel like this is an amazing song, this music's like feeling like it's going to give someone something, then I've done my job, you know.
Yeah,
it is.
Well, and I'm going to get her on a record as well because she can sing.
Eliza's
Bro,
an amazing
From the minute you
singer.
said it before, I was just like,
Eliza's an amazing.
we're going to come.
Okay.
No, Eliza's. I remember really well being like, oh my god, she's unbelievable.
You're unbelievable. You two are unbelievable. I watched the
Sean
Ed
is
Sheeran version of
unbelievable.
Sean's, and I want more of like his music. I want it all the time.
Sean's
because I'm
scary
like,
good.
what?
Sean's scary. No. Listen,
The
Sean
trills,
likes you complimenting,
you
right?
can do the Egyptian scales. What are they called? You know, with the
Egyptian scale.
You know, like it's just like insane. Prince talks about that, and you do that even in that song. I was like, oh my god, this is
It's
like
scary
out this
good.
world. Scary. The way you can control your voice. I was listening to you the other day, and I thought it's almost like an athlete. You know how an athlete has to train their muscles? They do the same, you know, backflip over and over and over. And maybe the first 3 backflips are like, I can't quite get it or whatever. Not that that's you at all, but like, I was thinking, because when you're a child, you can't go, but then I was like, how do you build that up so you
That's
can
a nice run,
just
by the
do
way.
that?
That was
So
a nice
how do you do that so that you can get that? You're so amazing. Like your voice can do anything. I was like, flipping heck. Yeah. How did that come about for you even?
Growing up in church, and I think it's repetition.
Yeah.
Repetition creates habit shapes your mentality. So I always had people around me that they pushed me to try.
Yeah.
And they allowed me to, and especially it's my old school teacher, my primary school teacher, an amazing woman called Debbie Harris now.
Aww.
And she was the first person that put me into TV work. The West, doing Bugsy Malone.
Oh yeah.
Wow.
Debbie Reigns.
How old were you then? You did
9 or 10?
You were
9 or 10?
a mini Sean.
You literally.
Mini Sean.
and she taught me this, the first thing, and I think it set me on my way. She said, Sean, and I remember this, I was doing a song for Christmas and we were doing Birmingham Symphony Hall. Wow. Yeah, and she goes to me,
That's cool.
Isn't it? It's a gorgeous venue.
Really gorgeous.
And Eliza, this is the first piece of wisdom that kind of really stuck with me. She goes, Sean, the difference between a professional and amateur is this. She goes, if you remember this, you'll always be fine. An amateur practices until they get it right. A professional practices till they can't get it wrong. I learned that. I swear to you, Eliza, at that point, rehearsal to me was double the time. Everything was...
Really?
Everything became double because I was just like, if I want to be that much further ahead, I have to be willing to put that much work in the beginning so that by the time I become older, it's just normal to me. So when I listened to your process, I was just like, get it. And that also comes from being around older people. Remember I talked, at 9 and 10, I didn't hang out with the kids. I was in the production meetings with Bob Howes, the producer, the director. I don't know what they got to talk about. They ain't got nothing to me. I'm like, how does that work? Does that make sense? And I was listening to her and I'm like, she's going to do ridiculous things because she sees beyond the moment she's in. Some people only have the ability to see what's in front of them. Some know that stepping back one step gives you the ability to see what's ahead of you. Yeah. And just listening to... And I feel that about you as well. I
think this is something that's we were mutually... But I feel that about both of you as well. And I wonder, like, what do you think that is? Like, what were you like as a child? And 'cause when did that first start? That fire of like, I remember being in my like small town where I grew up, right, and being like, I'm with my friends who are my age, and being like, I don't feel like I belong here. Wow. Like I don't feel right. I feel like there's a discomfort and like this isn't it. Yeah. And I've like always been striving towards this thing, and I'm starting to feel more comfortable in it because I feel I'm getting closer to whatever it is, and I'm sure it's always moving. It's an elusive thing, but like,
that's true. The goalpost.
Yeah,
you've got there. It's like
it's an elusive thing, but also like we just accept the reality we're in once we arrive somewhere. So now like tomorrow I've got a day on like an HBO series, and like there's a time when that would have been. I would have been like in tears at the idea of that. And now it's like, cool, that work, cool. And I'm like, but it's sort of like, that's just like a day of work.
It's a norm now.
It's like, what? Yeah, I mean, like, not as normal as I'd like it to be yet still, but like, it's normalized to a degree that's not, I'm not like overwhelmed by it in any way.
No.
Which is almost... Sorry, no, please.
I was going to say, nor are you numb to it, because it's not like you do too much for it, you're complacent or, take it for granted. I never take anything for granted. Like any day on set, I'm like, well, people even tell me calm down, because I'm like the most excited. Even by the end of like a 6-month shoot, I'm still like, can you believe our job? Can you believe what we're doing? They're like, yeah, chill out, man. You've literally been here for like 5 months. Like, calm down. But yeah, Lucas,
that's one of the things that and maybe we'll share. Like, because you're so open to the world in that way, like I can imagine you being on set. I know this because like that you'll stop in the middle of the day and be like, God, it's amazing what it does, isn't it? When people are sort of like tired and like it's like 2 a.m. and like grips are sort of like getting annoyed because they're fucking that kind of thing. Like, do you think that leaves you open? Is it like that sort of sensitivity to joy and gratitude? Do you think that also leaves you a bit exposed to more pain in a way in the world, perhaps?
Definitely. Like sometimes I feel like I'm too, not even naive, because I know how to be the opposite, because I play characters that are the opposite. Yeah. So I know I have it within me. It's just when to unleash it kind of thing. And because I never like letting people down or upsetting anyone. So I'm very conscious of just like I always say to people like, I just want to have a good day. I just want to have a nice day. I feel like everyone just deserves a nice day. When some people get like vexed or like angry at the tiniest things, I've never had that ability. Like I just don't understand it. So when I was like a teenager, like some of my girlfriends would be like, so pissed off, didn't text me back, and it happened, and I'd be like, I didn't have the attitude, I didn't even possess the ability to care enough to get angry about something like that. And I'm still like that to this day. In fact, even to the point where people go, you should get angry, you should. I'm like, don't tell me if I should. Actually, you should and then start getting some peace in your life, because actually when you're older, that's going to start the wrinkles, honey. Otherwise you need all that Nivea, okay? So in a way, like you need to get some peace, okay? Because I used to kind of get sick of that now that I'm 29, like when I was even like 24, 5, 6, people would be like, you're always so happy, you're always so positive, what the heck? Like almost like it was a bad thing. And I'm thinking, isn't that what everyone strives for? Like we talk about mental health constantly, like it's something our generation especially is super aware of. And if anything, if everyone's trying to strive towards not even happiness, because happiness is almost like an unattainable thing to, it's not something that just lasts and lasts and lasts all day long. Happiness comes in bursts. But peace is something that can sit within you throughout the entire day, and something you go to bed with, something you can wake up with peace. And like, I don't know, I feel like if I'm just trying to be a good person and strive towards just having a good day, then surely that is like the end goal. And actually I'm going to try more to go in that direction, rather than, because people used to say like, you should get more angry at that, or more defensive of this. And I think, no, like it takes a lot to get me like really, really, really angry. First, my mother's Italian American, she'll be angry like that. It's fire. And because I grew up watching that as like my, I'm so in awe of it. I find it incredible. She's the best mama in the world. But in a way, it made me go, actually, I'll be different to that kind of thing. Yeah. And I know if certain circumstances arise where you do have to be super defensive, or you do have to stand your ground, of course that comes out. I'm not like a little lettuce leaf or anything. But when it comes to just like the daily grind, I just sort of think, one day we're not going to be here, so we might as well just have a good day.
It's one of the first things we ever said in this podcast actually was optimism is strength if it's not naive.
Yes.
And like, I think that whole thing about like being kind as a sort of weakness is like is the most pathetic thing to believe, truthfully, if I'm being honest, because it's like
there's way too much vibes in this room. Like you can fully feel it. Everybody's just got
everyone's like burning. Everyone's burning.
We might need a little circuit break in a second, just to go have a little.
We're gonna start crying with joy.
I nearly went when you were talking about Lady I was with in the chapel for some reason. I was like, I can't be crying. But seriously, yeah, like because there's so many. Something I'm really trying to come to terms with in my life right now is, where do I let anger rise in a healthy, useful way?
In an appropriate
way.
For you and whoever else
100%. Because it's very rarely appropriate or even useful to just kick off. Like there's nothing there's nothing less manly than being the loudest voice in the room kind of thing. Like, which I kind of agree. Like just being like, people who just try and like heavily like fucking bravado their way through like their own insecurity and try and make that seem like strength. That's never appealed to me, and I've never felt weak. But I try to be kind to everyone, and I try to be, but sometimes that really gets stretched. And I imagine like you must find you're 6 months into a shoot and there's like just the day's not going your way, and there must be moments that test you in that way.
Definitely.
How do you, and Sean as well, like you're on tour, let's say, and you're
But you know what? I was just listening to what you're saying, and I was just like, I understand why both of you are in that space, because none of your strength comes from visuality. It's all from your intrinsic well, and it spills out of you. Eliza said something nuts just a second ago. Bro, happiness is a thing. Peace is a state.
Yeah.
If you lose the thing, then you lose everything. Make sense? If you're in a state of, it can
Ain't
always
nobody
be
gonna fuck
found.
with
It
you.
can always be found. Can it not be?
It belongs to you.
Dude.
You own it. Yeah.
So then it's like you're working on the iOS updates of what people project in moments to live in that moment.
Yeah.
Bro, the sun doesn't try to shine. Like, it fully just goes, what's up?
I'm here, then I'm not here. But the peace is always there if you want it. If you
'Cause
can,
it's
and it's hard to
content.
cultivate. But once you tap into that, some things you just doesn't matter. It doesn't matter to get angry. It doesn't matter to get whatever. Like I'm lucky. I just never had the ability when I was younger anyway. And so then the older I got, I was like, why are people getting angry at certain things? And I was like, it must just be an insecurity in them, or just a sense of like not seeing beyond the, realms
the horizon of the moment.
Yeah, that's so much more than us. There's so
Which
much,
is the
we're
older
so much
thing.
bigger than us.
Isn't it?
Which is the older
Yeah,
thing.
that's
Because
you
older
hanging
people
around with.
in experience
that.
will go, it's not that deep.
Yeah.
And if you've been subconsciously taught that, then your default setting is to consistently look for something that is living above what you can't. Bro, the bird's eye view, you can see everything.
Yeah.
I'm not saying I'm always doing that, because there are some
impossible.
days, I get wrapped up in being self-conscious of going, I wonder what that person thinks of me, and did I do the right thing? Blah, blah, blah. But then I have to always remind myself, okay, chill out. I'm really enjoying getting older, because I can't wait to gain all that wisdom and stuff. I'm actually enjoying that. I can't wait till I'm 30. I know it sounds weird, but I'm like,
Sounds like you're pretty much there.
She's all right still.
I want to be you when I grow up.
But even I'm such a wally sometimes. I'm like, why did I do that? Why did I say that? There's so many things that I do all the time. And I'm like, oh my God, that was just not on, like not cool. But it will be stuff that I beat myself up for probably more than anyone else does.
Yeah.
And I can't wait to shift out of that space and just not care anymore. That's the sort of not the last phase, because as you say, we're always growing. The goalpost constantly moves.
Yeah.
But to then the next phase, and I think about it a lot. I'm really aware of it, really conscious of it. It's just, like moving into a space of just not caring now as much as what people think, but just still be a good person within that and have a good day, and drive joy when you can, give it when you can, and get it back. It is just a beautiful circle of that, rather than getting irate about stuff.
Yeah.
And within our jobs, especially in the creative industry, we deal with rejection constantly. That is just the norm. And when I was younger, I definitely took it so personally, and I was like, oh my God, there's something wrong with me. I don't look right. I don't sound right. I'm not talented enough. I'm not clever enough. I'm definitely not right. And whereas actually the older I've gotten, I do not care. Like with rejection, I just sort of think, my mother always says, if the job is for you, it will go to you. It will go to you. And I just think, she's right, because if it's for you, it is for you.
Yeah. There's nothing you can do. I really, sorry to cut you off, sorry, Karen.
No, Lucas Garrion, no.
Sure?
Yeah.
It was just that we spoke.
Sweetest man alive.
This is a very polite.
You, darling.
No, you go. I'm so sorry to talk over you. I was just so excited by your rhetoric. No. Like I just think like I just like we spoke about rejection a while back on one of the really early episodes on this program. Like. Program? Is this a program? I don't know what's the correct. Is it a program? Will be.
It's got him institute.
Host, bro.
It is now, baby. It is now on this series there. And like, I had a real moment when I was like, I think I was like 22, probably 23, when I like suddenly realized I was like, oh, it's not rejection at all. It's literally nothing to do with me when I don't get a job. Like especially I think I spent a few days working in a casting office one time on Christmas when I was really young. And I needed some money for a holiday, and like the thing came up, and I was like, "Oh, if I can spend 3 days like going through casting some Christmas advert."
Good shout. I feel like all actors should just do that.
Oh,
Where it was so fascinating. Yeah, it was so fascinating. It wasn't. I wasn't trying to be like tactical about it, but like it was really funny because I was like, "Oh, it's nothing to do with the actor.
No.
Like it's so mathematical. Like literally, like people, it's kind of heartbreaking as well because sometimes people like they'll submit stuff and then the cast director watched the show reel for literally 7 seconds, right? And it was like a comedy thing, and the cast director watched it and she was like, "He's not funny, no worries."
And without even getting into the meat of what that person's created.
It's just in their face. He's like, "I ain't got a funny face. He hasn't got a funny face."
Oh.
And I was like, "Oh, it's like numbers. It's just numbers." And it's like, it might be that you're 5'10" and the lead actor, whatever, is 5'11", and they didn't want that to be the dynamic of the stuff that's so beyond your control. Just go and do the audition. That's your job. Your job is to professionally audition.
Absolutely.
Says someone who hasn't been cast in ages.
man is
You
the
know what
most
I mean?
talented human being, honestly. He can do anything. And so when I first walked in the door, I was like, you can do anything. Look at you here now. Like, I'm just like so in awe
This is
of
how I feel about
Lucas's
you, though.
career,
I'm
that
so in awe of
everything.
you
No,
and
like,
everything you do.
but you're, I don't know, it's just beautiful to see you do all kinds of things. There's so many dimensions of you and your creativity and your talents. It's endless. It's
love you.
endless. Honestly, Lucas, seriously, you're like, mind blowing. And Sean as well. Oh my God. And Jam. Hey, Jam. You're so sweet. Amazing. I think we have to shout out to Jam.
Shout out to Jam.
Shout Jam.
You can tag him right here.
Yeah,
Man, I
it's
jam
jam.
behind the camera.
It's jam time.
It's jam time,
Slow
baby.
jams.
Slow jams for jam.
Oh, it is.
We need a radio show, man.
Yeah,
I know. This all day.
This some music.
I love it.
Slide into jam slash.
Meet
The
the
band
band.
drop.
That's right there. Leave these two in here.
Yeah. What is that?
We're going back to Cambridge. We'll see you man later.
Oh my god. So right. So anyways, I want to ask you a proper question. So about like that's a very
amazing.
abrupt end to that little
And now.
that bit.
Yeah.
And now back to
breaking news.
we spoke about like the goalpost shifting and that kind of thing. So like Eliza 2000 early 2015 before we did Guitar Hero, right?
Yes.
Picturing Eliza now, who's like 8 years deep in this series, just come back from Tenerife shooting A Town Called Malice. Like so many, you had your West End debut last year as well, right?
I did.
Yeah.
I did.
Like,
Yes.
You look at all the accolades you've done now. Do you feel? Well, how do you feel about that? Like, and do you feel that you've arrived at a place, or is it that thing where the goalposts are still like, yeah, I'm on the way, I'm on the way, I'm on the way. I've done these things, but I'm on the way.
That's such an amazing question, because I go like I flip between like some days I wake up and I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe what I've accomplished, and not in an arrogant way. It's just more like I never thought I'd even be a TV actor. I never ever thought I'd get hired to do film. So the drama school I went to was purely theatre based, and
It's RADA, right?
And I went to RADA. Yeah. Although I hate sometimes saying RADA. But I knew that I wanted to do theatre, and I fell in love with theatre as an actor. I was like, doing the school plays and all that kind of thing. So I just thought that was my thing. And when we got into like our third year, I was like, oh, I'd love to work for like Shakespeare's Globe, the RSC, and I'd still just absolutely do anything to work for those places, because that's where I fell in love with acting, is through Shakespeare and all that kind of stuff. So I never thought I'd do TV and film. In fact, I never even paid attention in the TV classes, I will say, because I just thought, well, no one's going to hire me to be on TV. Like, they're not. Like, what? I didn't think I looked whatever TV looked like. I just thought no one's gonna hire me. And also, I wasn't as interested in it, and I didn't feel like I had a natural ability for it. So I just thought, well, I'll just stick to the theatre stuff, because that's what I adore. And weirdly, then I did a job called WPC 56, which was like a BBC show. It was like one episode, but it was an amazing like starter into the world of filming. And it was a wonderful show. It was all set in the 50s, so like most beautiful costumes, like, and the cast were incredible. And because I didn't know what I was doing, it was just such a beautiful, like, entrance into it, because everyone was so welcoming and warm, and there wasn't too much pressure, but it was a lovely way to like learn about the cameras, just like the technical side of it. Like with theatre, that there's a big live audience, which is in its own way a technical thing to maneuver. Like that in itself is scary. You have to prepare yourself for that and go, when I look, at them, or whatever I can see, don't get shaken by it, or use it even, in fact. So that even in itself is like a technical process, but then all of a sudden you don't have an audience, but now you've got like 5 cameras in your face, and someone's got a big boom, and you're like, oh, okay, now I have to maneuver this feels really weird. And if anything, I got more terrified by that, because I was thinking, the camera's right there, what if they don't believe what's in my eyes, what if it doesn't look right, what if I'm too much? And so that was another thing to kind of get over. And now looking back from that point of like literally not having a clue, and then getting to like The Last Kingdom and really going, okay, this is a bigger world now. This is like a big story, awesome set. We were out in Budapest. They'd built like an entire village for us, castles, palaces, everything. There was warriors, and I was like, oh, hey, no,
they got warriors.
This got warriors up in here. What? And I was just like, this is like immense. So what another way to learn. And again, when I compare like the season 1 performance to season 5, I can so see how much I've just grown in just comfort. It's not even like I'm better or anything like that. It's just more like I can sit in it better, and maybe I don't care as much if I make a mistake, or I'm not putting too much pressure on myself, apart from that scene where I learned the wrong thing. That one was scary. But apart from that, it's just like, okay, I know this person, and I'm comfortable in front of the cameras now. Now I could not give a damn, but back then I'm terrified. So, and again, just like sometimes I'll wake up and go, I can't believe I've done all this TV. Like, I feel so lucky. And then getting on A Town Called Malice, because The Last Kingdom was then like a a beautiful recurring family that we'd go back to every year, and we'd always pray we'd get another season. So when we got one, we'd be like, yes, we're all getting back together again. Yes, it was like the band's getting back together, and then we'd go out to Budapest and have a fabulous time. And we know these people, we know this story, we know this world of it. So it was like wicked. Whereas A Town Called Malice was like, okay, this is brand new landscape, brand new cast, brand new kind of show. And my character, am I allowed to swear on this?
Oh my god, yeah.
But my character, she's called Carly Lord, and she like talks like this. She's like proper like sort of East End London, not sort of South. She's from like Bermondsey, talks like this, very like mobster's wife. I'm like, go fuck yourself, you fucking, everything's just like, so always smoking, always just like.
Amazing how immediately your whole being transformed. It's amazing. I was like, oh hey, cool. I got nervous and I was like, oh, so hi, nice to meet you. Welcome to
But again, that's why I love voices, and I was so lucky to get a role that went, we demand a different voice now, and I was like, yes, because I love accents. When I got that audition for A Town Called Malice, it said like South London, and I'm a Lincoln girl, so I was like, I have to really pull off that because I love that world of it as well.
Yeah.
And the amazing creator and writer of the show is called Nick Love, and he's like also a director as well, but he created the show, and I watched all his movies, I watched everything, I watched every interview about him, and he's like, such an incredible person, and like South London, born and bred, like he is of that world, that is his world. So I thought to sort of convince him that I could be a part of this. If he could envision it, I can do it, sort of thing, or I'll try to do it. Was like, oh my God, what an amazing challenge. So when I got up for that audition, I was so excited, and I love the 80s, I love glamour, I love drag and stuff like that. So when they said like, oh, it's going to be high glamour, we're going to like sort of perm roll your hair and big makeup, I was like, yes, because I love all that kind of stuff. And it's such a different version than to The Last Kingdom, where I'm like drab, I've got a beard, an old nana. So I thought, oh my God, to go from that to that is what I love, because it's the whole character acting thing. So when I got it, I could not believe it. And I was like, this is ridiculous. So it's then from that job, I especially thought, okay, this is so interesting. And then it's a different like filming thing that I've been trusted to do, because after a while, you're trusted within a show that you've been in for years, because you're part of the cogs, you're in the machinery.
You're
but to be
in.
then trusted for a new one, it was like, oh, somebody else, I can weave myself into this world now if I try and work hard on it. And so it was wicked to go there, and just the most beautiful place. Filmed it in Tenerife, and it's supposed to be the Costa del Sol, so set in the 80s, and it's all about this like crime family that come from South London, and they then go to the Costa del Sol, and then it's like chaos follows them wherever they go, and every single character is bonkers, like larger than life, really wild, but at the same time very deep. Everyone's got such a huge emotional arc. Just when you think you've figured out a character, they go a completely different way. Every single character does that. In fact, I said that to Nick Love, and he was like, well, yeah, that's part of fucking thing. I was like, yeah. I was like, genius. And I was like, how does that's part of the fucking show, like that's what we're doing. I was like, this is just so cool, because I love that. And that, just when it's same with Lady Elsa, you think you worked her out, and then she goes the other way, and she's like friends with each other. But it's so fascinating that this all happens within season 1. It pops off, and so it'll be due to come out like early next year.
Yes. When is this?
So it'll be on Sky.
So
that's all we're sort of known for now. But it's so unique. And I was saying to you, Lucas, earlier that it's like an homage to 80s music. So it's 80s culture, it's 80s dress, but the music absolutely carries the show. And we were saying it's kind of like another character.
Yeah, right.
Because the minute somebody could be in a big violent sort of scene, and all of a sudden like Duran Duran starts playing, and then they look up and then start singing it down the barrel of the camera, like lip syncing it, and it's like it gets so surreal.
It's heightened reality.
It's heightened reality. And it's really clever, because although it's a TV show, it's an 8-part series. They filmed it in anamorphic, which means like they filmed it like a cinematic movie, like it is a movie. Yeah. So it doesn't look like a TV show. So it's like a wider sort of lens. And it's very like the landscapes, because we have the sunsets in Tenerife, so there could be some gangster stuff going on. Everyone's like in their 80s gig, are you fucking what? You fucking, and then all of a sudden the landscape, and it just looks insane. It's like, and then the music comes in. It's bonkers.
Can't wait to see it. Can't wait to see it.
It's going to be. It's very unique, and I loved it.
Yeah,
wicked. Yeah.
And I think we need to talk about voice for a second, because like what we would have quite a bit, but like, but just like the way. Have you seen Judy? You haven't seen Judy? With Renee Zellweger.
I really want to see that. I want to see that so bad.
It's a great film, but there's a really interesting interview with her where she talks about when she was, this is relevant, I promise, when she was prepping and she was doing vocal lessons, as she started like learning how to use more of her voice, like go up her own register and stuff, she hit this one day where like she was just going up the scales and stuff and like stretching and she hit like a higher note, and suddenly was like, oh, and just like burst into tears and was like really confused. And the vocal coach was like, yeah, it's just because you haven't you haven't accessed that. There's so much trapped emotion in the physicality of your voice there. You haven't used that before. It's just all that is. And I was just like normal to them. And I heard a similar thing from Andrew Garfield when he did Tick Tick Boom. And like, there's something very real about what you tap into vocally and what sort of frequency that unlocks within you emotionally.
Big time.
Which is why I think like it's really interesting with you because you have such dexterity with it. You have such ability to like just immediately be someone else. And it's like, it's quite disarming in a way. Do you know what I mean? Like seeing it, it's like you suddenly disappear. And it's like you know when a baby's like dad shaves and it's like something like who's that? It's like it's really like is that something that you always been able to do that, or was that like something that you like honed at RADA, or was that like
absolutely it's definitely something I've always been able to do. I think just purely again with the accents like in my family, and I would say as an actor I think it is one of my most powerful tools that I do rely on. So when I do get an audition through that doesn't let me do an accent or something, I start to panic because I genuinely love transforming through a voice so much, and I know how much it does. Like instantly you're like, whoa, you know, it completely transcends into something else. Even if I sound like a bloke, like talking like that, you know, sort of like, oh my God, there's a completely different person. If you hear it over the thing. So thanks, it's a good bloke.
It's a good bloke, got it.
Good bloke. But like in that sense, it's an easy shift, it's quick. But then when a character doesn't necessarily rely on that, they go, no, we want your own accent. I go, you know, and I can do that. But I immediately go, I know that when I talk with my own voice, I feel silly, I feel like, you know, whatever. But then that's crazy and it's weird. But then I'm really comfortable in other voices, so comfortable. And I just love accents. So when I think about it, I love Irish accents. I always think if I was to have a different accent, if I could choose one, I'd love Irish or Welsh or like, I don't know, like New York or something with a lot of character, because my own accent is that in my ears there's not a lot going on. Yeah. Dude. There's not enough going on to form a strong enough identity or something. It's weird.
You remember,
it's weird.
You came to a show and I asked you about no, because you've just literally explained something that you came to see a show and there was a part of the show where I said to you, was that okay? And you're like,
the O2 one.
You're like, that's wicked. And I felt like I felt like a Black Michael Buffer.
Sean Black.
No, I felt and Smiley Smiley did this to me in rehearsal the first time. So there's a little period because the show's quite long, and sometimes you need a toilet and just have a little minute. So we come to the front and we do this little bit, and I'm trying to just kind of keep the audience engaged while the artist has just popped off for a second.
Yeah.
I used to be terrified of that part. I used to see it coming down the steps, and I'm like, no one would know because of how I am. But I remember talking to Lucas like maybe 20 minutes after the show, or it might have been the next day, and I was just like, I've got to ask you a question. He's like, go on. You see this part of the show? Be real with me. Yeah. How cheesy is it? He goes, what do you mean? I go, how cheesy, my man? Like, how bad is it? Eliza, no lie. And it's only because there are certain people in your life that you trust and you'll go to as a barometer.
Yeah.
You know? And when I asked him, I know Lucas well enough to know when he's giving it to me real and when he's sprinkling a little, like, I don't want to hurt your feelings too much.
I love that.
And it was the first time between you and Wallace, because he came and saw it in Leeds. Yeah. He was like, no. And all of a sudden, it gave me a better relationship with Smiley as well, because I was just like, you're the reason.
You made me do that.
But then in a quieter moment, it made me sit there and go, okay, cool. Then there is something about me presenting me, just as me, that I don't necessarily feel overly comfortable
I still am.
But I think you can't see it. You can't see yourself, because the moment Sean was talking about is like playing the O2 Arena, right? Mm-hmm. And there's a moment where Craig's, I guess like costume change, or no, we'll say it on the next bit. So Sean's got like.
Me and Laura come to the
Sean
front,
and Laura,
and then the band as well. We're kind of helping the audience through this little mega mix set that we've got, where
transitioning.
There's a few songs and stuff, and you know, like you're just trying to cajole. But I was very aware. I was just like, it was smart. Smart was like, and I remember going to him. Honestly, I remember going to him. Going, do I sound like that? He's like, bro, this is jokes, man. This is jokes. And I went to Quam.
Got your head a little bit.
I went, Quam.
Yeah.
Is it bad? He goes, brother. He goes, if it was bad, I wouldn't let you do
what?
it.
Isn't that crazy though? That like, because
shake it. Shake it, Eliza.
What's amazing is like you're looking out at how many, I don't know what capacity is this O2 Arena, like 30,000? 30,000 people. And like I'm watching you have individual relationships with each person in the audience that you're looking at, right? And carrying over. And you can like you can read on their face the level of joy they're experiencing, and like obviously you're the best singer in the world, so it's like so you have to worry about that part. But like, and it's amazing that you can get all that information, but one person going
and
making a joke and didn't even mean it in a bad way.
But do you know what
as a joke,
like
and that then sticks,
and that's
doesn't it?
Like,
and then you're
because that confirms what you think about yourself. You're like, I knew it. I knew I was a liar.
I just feel like I'm in your, like, you've come over to the house, and the person you came to see isn't here, and I am trying my best to keep you entertained, but I am very aware you didn't come to see me, so you're sitting there going, yeah, I'll have another biscuit, but yo, where's old boy? Like, we didn't come here to chat to brother. And I swear, I'm just like,
such a good analogy.
And every time we get to Marshall does the shake it, baby, I'm like, oh no, he's gonna be here in 3, 2. I swear to you, bro. But it also though, it brought me to a level of self-acceptance as well, because I was just like, okay, I don't want to hide that in the fact that I can project something that seems bigger than.
Yeah.
And I think that's why, even with, because you know, Lucas he did this book of poems. It's just like,
yeah.
And we were
beyond.
No,
it's beyond. It's crazy.
Stop it.
And they're little things that,
please don't stop.
And there's just little things that's helping kind of to push the purpose that allows you to deal with scarier stuff, but in a really light way.
Yes.
And so the big point I was trying to make is I totally understand where your comfortability is with accents and so forth, because it's almost like we get to hide us behind.
Yeah, absolutely. And like in some ways, even during A Town Called Malice, the wonderful creator Nick Love, I remember him sort of warning us all, don't do that though, don't try and hide too much, because he's like, this is a show about, you know, real, I'm creating these amazing multidimensional characters that, yes, at the top of the show you might think they're quite stereotypical in a sense because of the way they dress and the music, but actually when you get into it, these are real people who then go through real things, and then, you know, even into like episode 3, you know, awful things happening, and you think, oh my God, and you see people's true colours. So he was like, if you know, to all of us, like the accent can't then dominate and become a mask, because then you can't penetrate that and see the real person underneath. Like the vulnerability has to still shine through enough. So whenever you can, not even like drop it, but just be aware and conscious of it not becoming just a tool like, oh, I'm playing the voice rather than playing this actual character who has all this backstory and life and history and feelings. And I even got told that drama school once, because I always used to play the old ladies. I was the youngest in my year, but they always, without that, and any of my friends who could be listening to this, like who went to my school, absolutely know I played every old lady, anyone's mum, anyone's grandma, any battle axe, any old ass, somebody. I was always old. And I remember then I played this, like it was like a D.H. Lawrence play, and it was a Nottingham accent, but from 1910 or something, or like 18 something, maybe it was 1910. It must have been 1910. And they talk like that, and it's sort of weird, sort of not northern, but it talked like that. And it was the weirdest accent. We had to go to Nottingham and everything, and like listen to the archives of the D.H. Lawrence Museum to like listen to rot, and they sort of talk like that. That sort of sounds Somerset, but it was so bizarre. And I remember the head of the school, he was like, loved it. He's like, but you've got to be so careful with your voice, because we know you love a voice, we know you love an accent, but you've got to be able to just be able to still make it as real as possible. But then, funny enough, we did radio. So you do like a couple of weeks of like film and TV, then you do a couple of weeks of radio, but then the mass of the training is theatre. And I remember when we got to the radio segment, I was like, ooh, and I felt so comfortable, because that's the place you are completely required. That voice has to be the tool, because that's the only thing you've got. You don't have your physicality, you don't have your aesthetic, you have nothing. So if I can convince someone I'm a bloke that talks like that through their voice, that's what I have to do. So if anything, go lean into that. Make it like mad. Make it massive. Like, so in a way I loved doing radio, because it's the one place where that was absolutely a must, that you went into it, versus, you know, acting, where we can see if we don't want it just to be the voice. Cool, the voice is impressive, but there's a person behind it, so it's interesting. But then, you know, what you're saying, Shean, about when you're yourself, like if I had to do a speech on stage and just be me, I'm like it's the most frightened person ever, but yet you could think I'm very confident, like in this beautiful like room with you guys, are so lovely, so I feel very comfortable. But the minute I have, you know, 100 eyes on me and I am myself, then it's awful. I
find the hardest part of any tape is when they go, "Oh, just like say a bit about yourself."
Horrible.
Oh, are you joking?
Or even just going, "Hi, I'm Eliza."
Yeah, hi,
like,
it's the worst thing ever. Like, I've got a real theory about that though, that actors act because they feel uncomfortable about being alive to some degree. Like there's a level of like being me is some level of like a low level sometimes of humming pain. Sometimes,
and you don't know quite who you are yet.
Yeah, exactly. And I moved around a lot as a kid, and that's quite a common thing in panic factors. Like,
definitely.
Did you move around a lot?
Not at all. I actually always lived in the same, but I have friends who absolutely have that. Okay. And for me, I think mine came from being in England with an American mother, and it's not something that it's not that unusual, but it was in Lincolnshire. Like, she was the only American person, and I didn't feel fully British. So like pub culture and all that, I didn't get it. Like, I never did that as a family. We didn't do that, so I didn't understand. We'd talk about the American side, and we'd go to America a lot, and like, I don't know, we'd eat different kind of food. And in Lincoln, it's quite a small city as well, and it's very adorable and very quaint. But even with that, I felt different. So I think that's why I tapped into like voices, and and being an only child, you're like left with your own imagination. So you're like, rah. So in that sense, all of that then culminated into feeling like, oh, I feel a bit wacky, a bit different. So then putting on these, characters, making my mates laugh in the playground, doing all the voices, was like the way I felt comfortable. Like, oh, they like me, they like that. And like doing all the first school plays. In fact, I got forced into acting. I was the shyest kid on the block. I know that sounds really insane to think, like looking at now. But my mother, we'd go to the supermarket, and I'd just like stand there, and she'd see someone from work, and she'd be like, honey, say hi. And I'd just be like, she's like, you've got to say hello, that's my friend, and I just wouldn't know what to do. And I'd be like, and I remember like getting in the car with her, and she was like, I'm a little bit concerned because you don't talk to anyone, you're very quiet, you don't put your hand up in school, you've got to really talk, because then at home I'd be like, blah, 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 on my own. So she forced me one day into this like Lincoln theatre summer camp, and I remember seeing the leaflet and burning it in the fireplace. The leaflet came to the door, and I was like, I'm not doing that, because I just did not want to like the thought of getting on a stage. I must have been like 10 or 11 or something, was the most terrifying prospect in the world. I was like, I'm not doing that. Anyway, she sort of found the remnants. She's like, I've already booked you in, so burn it all you like, because you're going in 2 weeks. And I was like, no. And we did like Saturday Night Fever at the Theatre Royal Lincoln, and like the first week I was like, and it was like 3 weeks long or something, and by the end of it I was like, oh, like I got it, like it opened up the portal. So I know this sounds silly, but I'm such an advocate for like drama in schools. I know not all schools actually, they don't even give it, not all schools. And I feel like it's such an important tool. Like not even just if your kid wants to be an actor, but like, let's say your child wants to get into like, debating or just speaking out loud, because most jobs require public speaking. Even if you're in a business, you work for Google, you work for anything. Like even if you're a dentist, you have to talk to your patients. There's a level of like feeling comfortable with your own expression and feeling like you can come out of yourself a little bit, that I think you can not only get through drama, but it certainly pushes. Certainly for me, when I was a child, it was the thing that pushed me out of shyness. And if I hadn't done that, I would never have been an actor. There's no way I would have been an actor if she hadn't pushed me to this. It's weird how it worked out. Then I sort of fell in love with it, got bit by the bug, as they say, and then only then did I start wanting to do the school play. Before that, I was a bit like, I don't know. And so I'm just a big advocate for like drama for any child, even if they're not into acting. It's not actually about acting. It's like just you being able to be yourself, express yourself, then be other things, but to be comfortable within that rather than like stuck and sort of prohibited, because that's what I was like. I was like in a shell.
Like repressed kind
very
of thing.
Repressed.
I had a really vivid memory of like really similar, like be very shy out in the world. I think, people don't remember it that way, but I remember feeling shy all the time. And then I'd like get home and be crazy. And I was really one vivid memory of like being in my garden with like a stick playing like, I think I'd seen Zorro on TV. So I was like and I'd imagine I've been stabbed. So I was like, that did this really dramatic thing. And then like, I looked to my left and my neighbour was there, and he was like cutting his like fucking head or some shit. And he looked over and he's like, you right, young man? And I'm just like standing there and going, yep. And she going inside, walking inside like really quietly. But like that sums up like how I felt. Like I was so like just like crazy all the time. I was constantly trying to be like, I'm a normal human. It's really, it hasn't really changed. Like it hasn't really changed much. Like I wonder what were you like as a kid? Sean, looking at Sean for those listening.
Bro, do you know what? I was way too imaginative.
Really? I can see that actually.
And I had this like, I knew that.
Where's this going?
No, because I gotta be real.
I love this show,
bro. I knew that me and my dad got on in it,
right?
And it's like the government. If you know someone in the government, then maybe you can get away with a little more than the average citizen. So I just had this incredible sense of just, I understood myself.
Yeah.
Which is weird. And because of obviously my dad's involvement with the church, and even to now, just like I knew how to be what I needed to be in front of people.
Yeah.
God, that's a good way of explaining it. Yeah.
Because obviously, you've got Reverend Williams and Mrs. Williams and the boys, and you've got to be your little pastor's kids and
Of course, that whole dynamic of okay, so the pressure's high.
And so I very quickly, and this is also something that I felt even as Eliza was talking, that even though she didn't move around, I felt like a lot of I'm talking like I know her.
You do now.
I feel like your relationship with your mum, that was maybe where because you've got someone that is of a completely kind of different culture, and America's just massive compared to England. And so you're watching her Eliza's watching her mum find that balance of being a woman and being a mother and everything else. And as kids, this is information we take in. So I look at my parents and I go, okay, cool. So in church and at these events and thingy, this is how I be. I walk like this and I make sure that my dad's collar and everything, right, let's be put together. But when I get home, I'm allowed to watch Gladiators. And I can jump around.
Power Rangers.
And so what I did was I always pushed the balance of, okay, if I do what you need me to do in public, how crazy can I be in private?
Got you.
So one day, Sunday evenings, bless Sister Mo, she used to make the most amazing butterfly cakes. And I used to enjoy
little fairy ones.
Oh my gosh.
So good. The taste with the little icing sugar on the top.
She was just amazing. And don't ask me why. Tadesia and Shelly Ann have come to church this week. Why do I think it's a cool idea to call the fire brigade in church?
What?
I don't.
Well, just as a little prank.
I know, brother. As in, like.
How old were you?
9.
About 8 or 7. Like, literally, no, fire. And then put the phone down. Brother. But not realising they can trace calls.
Yeah.
So,
They're going to turn up, bro.
So I'm like, hey, I'm going to watch me. Do it 3 or 4 times. I ate 3 butterfly cakes.
Hyper of the icing sugar.
And we've been out of church for 15 minutes. It's time for us to go back in. So we go back in and I'm all back row and I'm nice. Until we got a side door, bro. Not even that. Poof, poof, poof.
Oh, whoa.
So I'm watching all the deacons get up. I'm like, oh, bro.
Deacons.
Yeah, because I'm thinking the Devonshire Arms is like 3 doors down. So I'm thinking a couple of drunks are down run up. And I'm like, you man are going to catch the spirit today. Watch. When I saw the fire brigade, I was just like, oh, sweet.
Oh,
the guilt.
No.
And I was just like,
I feel stressed.
Bro.
I do too, yeah.
Oh my gosh.
And imagine my dad stops his sermon.
Nah.
It's not even like he let any of the others deal with it. He went, wait here. Calls all the kids to the back, bro. To this day.
That one will never leave.
Dude. So after 20 minutes and he knew. Yeah. He knew. He knew. But he was like, let me see how long it takes this boy to... Lucas, when we got to the end and it was 3 of us, I remember just got for time. I just said to I went, Dad, and I didn't look at him. I just went, Dad, it was me. He sent my other 2 friends out. Do you know what he made me do?
What?
Shake every single one of the firemen's hands and apologise for bringing them out.
So sweet.
He made me shake. And then the top guy, the captain, looked at me like, it was nice knowing you, little man.
You're about to die.
Bro,
we ain't coming again.
I went into the office and me and my dad had a little, well, he spoke and I listened about 7 minutes. And by the time he was finished and I went back to Sister Mo, she was just like, come here, bro.
Oh, yeah. Someone needed
bro. She knew that bro. And so as a child, I really, and like I stole my mum's engagement ring and gave it to Natalie Turner in reception.
What?
So this is the kind of kid I was.
It's romantic though.
Bro, I like
the heart was in the right place, man.
Did she ever get it back? Your mum did she ever?
Natalie's still wearing it.
Natalie's mum saw me give it to her, realised it wasn't one of them like Kinder Egg ones.
That's a real ass.
Gave it to Mr. Priestley. And then I'm
Gold?
getting called into Mr. Priestley's office at like lunchtime. And I'm thinking, no, because I want to spend an hour with like, brother, man gave her a ring. I'm in.
It's decided.
Bro, when I was walking and I'm all bouncing to his office and like you could see out the front first, I was like, that's my mum's car.
At
that stage.
Oh, God.
But here now, as an adult, they just were laughing at each other the whole time he was trying to tell me off. I didn't realise that though, because I was just, I'm like, my dad's going to kill me. Because I asked my mum in the morning, can I have your engagement ring? She was like, no.
What?
She's like, what do you want it for? I go, I want to give it to Natalie Turner. She was just like, no. So obviously when we're getting in the car for school, I'm like, I can go get that ring now.
So when you got out the car and then like, where did you go?
No, I put more, so there used to be this hair thing called jam. But it's like a real thick gel.
Right.
So I was like, I'm going to go put some more jam in my hair. So I went upstairs.
It's good game. Good game, man.
Went in a little jewelry box. I was like, there's bare other rings
Natalie
there.
needs me.
There's a ruby and emerald.
So yes, in terms of your question, I was a little mischievous.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
It's only because I was just trying to figure out what I could and couldn't do.
Yeah.
Wow.
I also bet parents love that. I bet at the time they were semi like, that's actually so a joke.
Hilarious. They know they're going to tell that story.
Yeah,
I think it's brilliant.
100%.
Yeah.
I used to do some crazy.
Damn.
Oh gosh.
I'm obsessed with that.
Also with the question that you were saying about when we were younger, why I think we got into where we got to where we were. I think it's a balance of two things. I think it's purpose and exposure. I think we've always had maybe those qualities and traits that allow us to do our job, but until you're exposed to something or like singing in church or at an event where there's lots of people, that's your first performance or whatever, that I think there would have been something you saw, whether we know it in our conscious or subconscious mind, same with you, that then it sparks something that then just grows within us, and then we fall in, well, we think we fall, but we're maneuvered into the right things. Her mum obviously saw something. Why, of all the things she could have been put into as a summer camp, why that?
Isn't that interesting? I wasn't the sportiest kid. I didn't do like archery or anything. It was just more like she knew that I was so goofy at home. She saw me playing and doing the accents and the silliness. And she was like, there's something in her that actually we need to get out. So exactly what it is, Sean. It's just this sense of like, she doesn't think she can do it, but the minute she's exposed, as scary as always at first, trying a new thing, especially if you think in yourself, oh, that's the last thing I can do. The minute you're comfortable with it, you're like, oh my gosh, now I sit amazingly in this. And then before I knew it, it was something I wanted to pursue, which was crazy to think as a child to now, like performing on stage, being on TV. Like it just seems like alien that could have been my attitude before. But I do remember my mum is hilarious. She's from Iowa, which is like in the Midwest of America. And we were just there actually. I was there for a whole month, like seeing family and stuff. And she used to work for the NHS for like 30 years. So when she first moved to England, she was like 35, I think. And then she's was she younger? Maybe she's like bit younger than that, but yeah, she worked for like 30 years for the NHS, like absolute bulldozer. Came in as an American nurse, and they were all like, "Who do you think you are?" And she's like, "I'll fucking show you." And then that was it. And then they were like, "Wow!" And then she became like an amazingly top boss kind of thing. But she was like, she has such ambition, and I always looked up to that. But the minute I said I was going to be an actor, I know that she wanted me to go into a medical field, which I was totally happy to do, but I took sciences for A-level, wasn't very good at it. I loved biology, but I just couldn't wrap my head around the chemistry. Like I worked so hard, but it wasn't naturally who I am. And to think I could have forced that, but weirdly, somebody said to me, and she agreed, they were like, she should just try out for drama school. She just try out, just see what happens. And none of us thought it would happen because my dad's a pilot as well. Used to work in the RAF, so none of us come from like an acting world, although the two of them are such strong characters. Like watching my mum like, okay, get your ass downstairs, and my dad like, right, it's tea time. Between the two of them, I was like, this is like a comedy sketch. Like watching them, and they called Ray and Edie, and like they're just so cute. And watching them all day long, I was like, fascinated. But then someone said try out for drama school. My mum went, yeah, you can do that just to get out your system, but no one thought anything. And it was weird. I didn't get into any other drama school, and then like RADA was my last set of auditions, and because I'd not screwed up the other ones, but I was so young. I was like 17 when I auditioned, and like 18 when I turned, it started. So I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know what monologues, although, I had like amazing help from like all kinds of people, teachers and mentors and stuff. But yeah, weirdly, RADA was the last set, and I thought, well, I'm never getting in here. So this is the last set of auditions. I know what I'm doing because I've, been rejected, but I've done these other monologues. It's so scary. And then once you've done a few of them, you're like, whatever. So I literally was like, whatever. did it and was kind of like in the room because I wasn't as scared, and weirdly got a recall for it. And I was like, what? That's when I was my like silliest. It was just really weird. I kind of let it go because I was like, there's no way I'm getting into any of these schools. And then the next recall and the next recall, and you kind of go through like, I think it's 4 rounds all in all, and they auditioned thousands of people, and then, you know, taking a group. So it was just so weird that I got in. And my mum, she was really like funny about me being an actor, because when I said I'm going to be an actor, she was like, why would anyone do that? The financial instability and the like the lack of structure, why would you do that to yourself? Because she wanted me to be like a dentist or a doctor or something. And so anyway, she was like, if you get into that school, you can be an actor. If you don't get in that year, I'm not, you're not going to have a little gap year. I'm not going to wait for you. You're going to go to a university and you're going to study whatever. So you're not going to do that. And I remember thinking, oh my God. So when I got to like the 3rd round, I knew there was one more round and I never thought I was going to get it. And when I got in, it was like, and she had to admit, she had to go, oh, okay, that's your fate, that's your destiny then. And so she allowed me to obviously go to school, because she was like, if you get in there, then I'll let you do it. And now she's like my biggest fan. She's got me on Google alerts and everything. So it's like, she knows what I've done before I've done it. I'm like, how do you know? She's like, so I read an article that mentioned that. I'm like, what? It's crazy. So it's really crazy how that's now flipped around, and she's so proud. But you know, especially for like parents that don't come from creative, you know, worlds, it must be crazy when their children go, I want to be this and that, like something wacky, and they go, that's not a career. Did you guys experience that when you said, I'm going to be this, and your parents were like,
it's so interesting, because like my parents just never flinched. Like there's a strange thing where like in a way, like you look at, I remember one time telling one of my mates, and they're like, is that not a bit irresponsible?
Like, do what you want, darling.
And I was like, honestly, but seriously, like I'm like, there was never a conversation about it. Like I remember I was literally just like, I remember the only decision that was made was I was going to go to college to do acting. After school instead of like sixth form. Went and did that, and then like I remember literally the last week of college being like, yeah, I'm not going to go to drama school or anything like that. I was tempted to apply. I'd like filled up my UCAS and stuff and doing all that, and then I was like, I'm just gonna give it a year. And I was like, I'm going to give it a year of just trying stuff, like just see what happens, and then if nothing happens, then I'll go to drama school next year. I'll try anyway. And like the last, so I remember saying to mum like, oh, I'm just going to leave it, and she was like, yeah, whatever you want, darling, I trust you. And then like, and then
that parent.
and like,
that's lovely.
And then the last week of that year, I got an agent, and then I've been with them ever since. So it's just like, and they found me. It was really strange. Like, my agent found me. Like one of my mates signed up to an acting website that was like a 30-day free trial, and I was like, I want to build a 30-day free trial. Let me get on that too. So like, I did the thing. In that 30 days, my agent is still my agent now. Found me and was like, hey, come audition with like they're holding. It was really strange. They're holding an audition for actors, the agency, and like it was like 40 people all in front of each other. And I went and did a monologue from the play that I love. And I was so scared. I remember like nearly being sick on the train. I remember like, literally I couldn't eat, and I was like, I need to eat something. I was like eating these like fruit pastilles to get some sugar, and I was like, I'm gonna be sick if I eat one more. I was like, it's so stressful. But yeah, like so no, they were cool. What were yours ever stressed about?
Do you know what? My dad and my primary school teacher, Miss Rains, they hijacked my childhood.
But with creativity, so they pushed you into that world.
Way, because every Sunday, like I was really quite mischievous,
right?
So they would just like stick that kid in the Sunday school choir and
before he calls the fire.
My dad just like, I'm gonna kill this kid, like literally. And my mum, bless her, because you got my little, because I'm in the middle, so I've got my older brother who is Leon's really good at just doing what he needs to do, and Wallace is the apple of my mum's eye. And so like, and he's a baby at that point, so like he's quite young. And it's just like, if he's not doing that, why are you doing that? So it was kind of like, Miss Rains was the first person. I played Joseph in the nativity play,
right?
And you know, in like most gospel churches, the tambourine's a big thing, right?
A big deal. Bro, you keep that beat.
Yeah, but here's the thing: I didn't realize it was a thing. So I just thought everybody could play the tambourine like I play the tambourine, or like
So tambourine's actually hard.
Bro,
it is hard. Really hard.
Right?
Get some zhuzh in there. Like,
so she got a guitar out and we sang like this one. She juiced up one of them Christmas songs, and so I can hear. I'm hearing her. I'm watching her play, and I'm like, there's a beat in there.
Dropping a little 3/3 in there.
So I hit one beat, and she's just like, yeah. We're gonna do that. We're gonna do that. So that was the start, and then she put me into this. BBC were running this thing called Song for Christmas. That's how I met Bob.
Right.
And like I think that was 9, and my dad helped me write the song.
Wow.
It was a song.
Amazing how this is working out.
Dude. And then from there, like my mum was always the person that what I said, she gave me normality.
Right.
So my mum would allow me just to do normal things. Does that make sense? And when I wasn't in that space, I was just another one of her sons. Does that make sense? Then she and that was, I've always respected that about my parents. Like as I've got older, I've understood the balance of how they are and what they've both given me. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So in terms of what I call the inspirational part of my life, where we make stuff and we kind of conceptually just do stuff all the time, that's very much my dad. And the informative part that is more studious and diligent, and it's a bit more routine and a bit more structure, that's my mum. And I realize the best version of me is when I marry them together, and I don't try and lean into one or the other too much. I just sit in equilibrium, and when they join, I'm my most efficient. Does that make sense? And that's how I now try to be even with what we do. That we always use these terms like the right hand and the left hand, because there are things that Lucas does, Eliza, that even in thought process and stuff, I'm just like, bro, I don't know how you do that. And it's not my job. And I think sometimes as men as well, our natural nature is to, we can sometimes be over domineering, and we can sometimes want to control too much. And I think, like you were saying earlier, that can allude to sometimes a small bit of insecurity. And I think when you're comfortable in what you do and who you are, when you see greatness in someone else, you never want to unnecessarily attach yourself to it or make it a byproduct of what you do. So you can just sit there and just go, that's dope. And we have that, so you're never kind of fighting with a person to in any kind of sense.
And no envy or any kind of like, oh, I can't do that. So then you resent yourself and then resent them. That's a horrible state to be in. I don't get that. Like I just, maybe when I was younger, I envied this and that, but the older I've gotten, I completely agree with you, Sean. Like, it's so stunning to praise other people, because all that love comes right back around. Not to sound like super hippie or bohemian, but it's true. Like, it's all an energy thing. And if someone's just so amazing at something, you just want to encourage that, because that's so good for them. And it's just stunning to see people doing their best stuff and feeling uncomfortable in their creativity, whatever that is, versus you going, well, I can't do that. So, and I feel like people can sense that when there's envy in the room or something, and then it makes them feel like they can't shine their brightest because it might make you feel uncomfortable. And then it's not really fair on either, so if everyone's just happy for each other, then it just, brings out the best in everybody, for sure. But it's funny with performance, because you probably both met people along the line who probably are a bit insecure and probably do make you feel that way.
Oh God,
and you can sense it in 5 seconds. And you're like, but, and I actually think blessing is actually just, I know exactly where it comes from, and I have such empathy for it. So I just have to sit in their shoes and go, oh, I wonder why you think that about yourself. And that's, and then I look at myself and go, maybe I've got my own insecurities about that. And then I'm consciously aware of not projecting it on other people, because I'd never want them to feel that. And, I want just to feel safe. Like, I'm such a complimenter. Like, I just love that. And you two are exactly the same. You're exactly the same. Like, I just sort of think, why not make someone else feel good? And especially in an industry that, as we already discussed, has rejection. It's hard enough as it is. So when you get the job, just celebrate it, because it's awesome. I also feel like, especially with TV jobs, you can maybe have like mates who are also actors that maybe don't want to watch you in something, or they're a bit envious, or they're like, But I just sort of think, like, the job's already done. You can't go reach into the TV, steal the role off me, you do it yourself and then put it back in. It's done. Just enjoy it. Just be happy for that person, because it's just there. It's just done. You can't mess with it. Like, it's just funny to me, like, that sense of envy, because it just doesn't breed anything good in yourself, and it's not going to get you any further. It's going to actually push you paces and paces back, and people can sense it, and it might make them not even want to do creative things with you, because they think, oh, if I sort of do this, they're gonna, it's just an interesting space, and it's something that is often there. It's quite, present in our industry, for sure.
I think you use your Instagram in a really loving way like that. Like, you really highlight people who are really that you're fans of, and like your friends that you're fans of, and in a very honest way. Because I think sometimes people think that someone who's very complimentary is like, often I think people, it seems like people are quite cynical about it and receive it like as if it's false. But if you compliment someone about things you really mean, you're just being open about them. Like, oh my God, like everything I said to you today, like, you are an incredible actor, Sean. You're an incredible thing. These are just facts. These aren't even like, it's not like me trying to be, no, but like objectively it is,
You're an incredible everything.
I mean, I wouldn't dare limit you to both those things. Far more than just those things. But no, like, and I wonder though, how do you, because you obviously, as a result of the incredible success you've had, have a lot of people paying attention to what you're doing. How do you protect yourself from that? Or do you find that you need to, or have you cultivated a group of people that actually are very sort of like, you can be authentic? You seem so authentic when you're...
Thank you, lovely. That's such a good question, because I have quite a love-hate relationship with social media, which I think everybody in our generation does. Like, more even if we don't admit it, I think we're more open to saying we kind of hate it these days, because we are so lucky we didn't grow up with any kind of, you know, we maybe had a big old computer maybe in the house and MSN Messenger, but that was it. It didn't rule your day. Now, like, anyone can have access to you 24/7. And I know that, like, in so many ways, social media is a phenomenal tool, especially in our industry, to connect with people, to show people your work. It's it's literally it's like a database for your creativity. It's like the coolest thing, actually. In some ways, I look at it and I'm like, that's genius. It's innovative. It's immediately shows a person what you've done, what you're capable of, what you're really like. For me, it was a really good platform to have, because most fans of The Last Kingdom, because Lady Else was such a bitch in the first 3 seasons, they just thought I was this nasty piece of work.
Right.
And I remember, actually, and I'll go back to like what I think about social media, but I remember I never used to have Instagram or anything. In the first 2 seasons, I think it was the third I got it. And all I had was Facebook, which is just a private account, me and my family and stuff. But I went onto The Last Kingdom's like sort of professional page, and they'd posted like a picture of me as Ailsa with all sort of, you know, whatever. And somebody kept writing under it like, this person's so nasty. You can tell she's such a horrible piece of work. What a nasty person.
Wow.
I hope she this and that. And I was only like 22 or something. And I was like,
oh my gosh.
And I was like, oh my God, somebody thinks that. Maybe thousands of people think that. Maybe millions of people think I'm this nasty piece of work. Oh my God. And I ran to the producers and I was like, oh my God, what do we do? This is so scary. And they were like, darling, you're doing your job.
Yeah.
I was like, right. So I had to, but that even was still like, it wasn't enough for me. I was like, it's not fair though that they think that about me. And of course, as I said earlier, I'm so hyper conscious, like,
want to be liked.
I didn't want to be liked. And like, it was just so gutting, and I thought, what the hell? And I spoke to Millie, in fact, about it, who'd kind of had Instagram. It was still the beginnings of all that. It wasn't what it is now. It's a beast.
It's a real beast now.
Beast. But at that beginning, she kind of had it and was like, well, it's a good space to express yourself and your natural age, you know, way younger than the character. You're not anything like it, you know, like literally a complete different person. So that's a good place to share that. So I got it and all that. And it was nice to then, a lot of the comments I would get from people, or people messaging, would all be like, I thought you were and I thought you were in your 40s. I thought you were horrible. I thought you were, and I'm so shocked. And in some ways it was a compliment, because I was like, well, that's nice, at least I think. But then I would then think, how many other people think that? How many people do I have to prove that I'm not this nasty person? I was like, one by one. How many, like, when's everyone going to realise? But then I also thought, as I got older, I was like, well, actually, I remember you guys are probably the same. When you were younger, Severus Snape in Harry Potter, like that guy.
The devil.
Yeah.
Exactly.
The devil. But
I didn't expect
a phenomenal actor.
Yeah.
And that's Alan Rickman. Bless his soul. Like,
bless his soul, yeah.
You know, sensational. And I had the privilege and honour of meeting him. And I remember, and I was about, I would have been 19, because he came to that drama school. He actually went to that drama school. So he came back as like a chairman, like speaker kind of person. I was like, this guy is amazing. And it made me really feel for actors that play villains, especially if they get typecast as villains.
Yeah. They do a good job.
They do such a good job that you believe them. But actually, they're sometimes the nicest people, but they can just transform into these different things. So I ended up getting social media, and it was a lovely outlet to show a different side of like my youth and everything like that. But then as it's like garnered more attention, it's obviously incredible in some ways, but I also find it to be, I don't think human beings are designed, we're not built to deal with that every day. We were running around in the wild with boars and saber-toothed tigers, and now we're like, our fingers, like sometimes my finger, I feel like I'm getting early arthritis. I'm scrolling and I'm like, 2 hours has gone by, where's my life? Am I going to wake up when I'm 80 and be like, hours of my life went by well doing this? Or for me, it's comparison city. You go on that, you open the gates, comparison city, and you look around and you go, oh, I'm not that. And as much as you could be very happy for other people, because as we said, we're very good at expressing that, that's our natural way of being, you can't also help but absorb other people's stuff. And for me, especially as a woman, I follow a lot of accounts, like fitness accounts, things like that.
Right.
You know, I can't help but look at these other women and go, I'm not that, I don't look like that. You know, and you come away feeling so terrible about yourself. But it's weird, people have even said that about me. They go, I looked in your account and you know, and everything is just a highlighted, you know, zhuzhier, shinier version of you. I know I don't always look like that. I know I don't always act like that, but it's highlighting those brilliant moments of whatever. And, you know, some people would even say, oh, you're also this, and I think, God, I don't think of myself like that, but you see me as that. God, and I see those people as that, and the whole thing is mad. It's like a maze of like psychology nuttiness. So I often think in the future, I feel like, because people also follow trends and like we all want to be a part of it.
Yeah.
We don't want to be excluded, but I see it as a game now, and I know I'm playing the game. As much as I know it's a game and I don't like the game, sometimes I log onto the game, I'm like, it's not a nice game, but I know it's a game. And unfortunately, especially as actors, they look at that. It's now part of the industry, and it matters. So if they're choosing between two people who look kind of similar, you know, whatever, they're going, they're kind of similar, but this person has whatever, we're going to go for them. Because they're going to get bums on seats, or they're going to get attention, they're going to garner or whip up some kind of, you know, whatever. And you sort of think, whoa. So because of that aspect, because I care about what I do and I want to continue being an actor and playing these fabulous different characters, I know, like, my business mind goes, you've got to keep playing the game, as much as my personal human heart goes, I don't want to play that game. So it's like a weird toss up between that, and there'll be days where I go, don't go on that. Just don't go on it. Because as just a person who's living their life, it's not the nicest place to be. It's funny. I bet you guys have a similar relationship.
I think you're playing a good game. It's a clean game. Eliza's playing a clean 100%.
game. All right.
I think if you're
poker face.
No, but like it's authentic though. I don't think it feels poker facey. I think it, like, as a fan of Instagram, thanks a lot.
If I was on Instagram, I'd be a fan.
See, this is we have to hear about your
Sean did the right thing very recently as well.
Wow.
I got to a place where I'm okay with knowing what I need to do to keep me center. And I was saying to Lucas that sometimes, like you said, because of the nature of our industry and the projection of what social media is, because so much of our industry does business there, that I realized that I didn't want to get caught in something that I know invariably makes me feel uncomfortable. Like, I find it really hard to take pictures of myself.
Oh my
seriously,
gosh,
so stunning. No, but I know you mean it. But
honestly,
also,
I can't. You know. And so if I don't get something that maybe was happening in the action of something, I can't sit there and go, okay, I'm going to do this. So I'm in this place where I'm kind of like, okay, we have some platforms, and the platforms create the perfect house for people to. I want you to feel me before you see me. And I felt like the most authentic way for me to do that is to present to you what is the most important thing to me. So through what we do with Think Eden, it's like our media platform where we can put out our ideas, our music, shows. Like, there's a couple of shows that Lucas has written. Eliza, I'm telling you, if he'd actually, when I was begging him to, just put himself in the most amazing thing. And every time I said to him, like, bro, like, obviously I can't tell you your job, and I'd never do that. But I'm telling you, I'm just saying, if you go in this thing pops in a minute. Bro, I know. And then we'll get like a little down the line. He'll be like, I should have maybe put myself in that. I go, listen.
You're too humble. You're too humble.
Eliza. So I'm just like, okay, cool. If I can hide me, because I don't want to put me there so much behind what I've built to help people. Then I feel like the version you get of me, I'm going to take away a whole bunch of expectations, because you've come into contact with the intention of who I am, rather than you judging me by the projection of what you think you see and what you think I am. And that's why I enjoy doing this. And I think I'm a bit of an introverted extrovert, because I love doing what I do, but I like the comfortability of authenticity. If that makes sense.
100%. That's why I love this platform. But I also find it so interesting that Sean removed himself off social media when our TikTok blew up.
Yes.
That's what I find really
I had to
commendable, because
was it overwhelming? Was it the sense of
prevention is better than cure.
Tell him again.
Prevention has always been better than cure. And I think that alludes to the fact that we hung out with older people. Because older people will tell you, don't do that so you don't have to go to the doctor.
That's
so true. I realized with the nature of the content we were making, I didn't want to put myself in a position where I'm potentially going to compromise someone's healing process based on something I may react to and forget to respond to, because emotionally I'm still a man and I'm going to do dumb stuff. And if I can eliminate and eradicate the amount of stupid in my life just by making a decision that means I might delay a comment or an interaction with a person a little further down the road when I'm more in control of myself, to sit there and just be able to leave it right where it is.
So and it doesn't have an impact on either person, party, and
And what we're doing is bigger than me sitting down and going, I said that, and do you want to... and I don't want to be like... I think there are things sometimes that push us that's bigger than us. Yeah. And I'm not going to compromise someone potentially seeing a broken relationship with a parent or being brave enough to love again, and I wreck that because I said some slick stuff in a comment. Right. You know what I'm saying?
So interesting.
And I think also on the mystique level, it makes people go, okay, so then if he doesn't want to present him, what is it about this Think Eden concept that these guys are, what am I missing in what they're presenting? That's your journey.
I wish I felt as, I wish I could commit to it as hard as you have. Because like, I feel everything you said. I'm like, yeah, man, that's how I feel. Mm-hmm. And then there's a.
But you run our platform. You can't commit to it the same way. I feel like no one could be saying, bro, no, I need you there going.
Yeah.
But I mean, even
someone's got to listen to this amazingness.
Someone's got to scroll through TikTok all day. Who else is gonna do it? No, like, but in my person as well, because like, there's no end to the level of like attention I want in some ways. Do you know what I mean? Like, and if I'm being my most honest.
I'm star sign you, by the way. Don't get weird.
Taurus.
Taurus.
Not weird at all.
And what are you, Sean?
Sag.
Oh, really?
What are you?
I'm Leo.
Leo.
I am that. Like, as in,
attention,
you naturally have that thing of like not to get into but
no.
You know,
go ahead.
What does Taurus say when it says
stubborn? It's like Taurus is like really stubborn. Really, like this the duality. So it's like, which is really me actually. I mean, it's everyone's in there, but it's like
my little brother's a Taurus.
Is it?
So you're explaining.
It's like really bullish and really gentle. It's like really attention seeking and really shy. It's like really, it's all the contradictions.
That is a Wallace.
That's actually me. It's like, hey, like, yeah, it's like, I'll do this podcast but sort of sit and be sort of like, you know what I mean? Like,
but also
smoldering.
panning.
But also be like, no, exactly. Exactly, yeah.
I love it.
Like, it's all that kind of shit. And that's completely, always has been completely me. Like, I'd like, on rainy days at school, I'd like put a little show on for everyone, but then be like really shy, like, so after, I mean, like that kind of stuff. Like,
I love that.
And I think anyway, sweet. If I remember correctly, I'm probably like romanticizing the sympathy of it in my head. It'd be like, oh, it's raining and I was sitting on my own. I remember it so well now. And
everyone was staring at me and relying on them for a good time.
Exactly. I mean, even on the way here, I'm like sitting on the train, I was like, listen to this really sad song, and I was like, God, my funeral will be so sad.
Doesn't everyone wish they could attend their own funeral and see who turned up?
I was wondering what
it was like. And what they do. Everyone wants to do that. It's like, who would actually turn up and who's gone crowd? What kind of music are you going to play?
Who's the real ones who actually? But yeah, so we should probably wrap this up because we're at 2 hours. I don't want to go.
I know, we could go forever and ever.
We're at 2 hours. Yeah, we just hit 2 hours.
Crazy.
I have so much more. Well, you're on every Monday now. So.
I would love to, like, if this is a regular thing, please.
Bring your mum next time.
Anytime. Bring your mum.
I want to meet your mum.
Yeah, she's fabulous.
So she do all like the collard green mac and cheese.
She does do a bit. But she does this thing called she does like was a green bean casserole and it has like crispy fried onions on it. And then she does this thing, and I don't know why it's called. It's called like something trash ham, which sounds really, really random. But it's basically a big ham hock, and you have to pour. This sounds mad. Full fat cherry cola or full fat cola, but cherry's better.
I heard about it.
Pour it in it, and you like boil it in the cherry cola for like half an hour or something, so really like low heat, and then it like absorbs all the sweetness, the cherryness into the like fat of the pork. It's mad. And then you kind of, it's all in the glaze, and then this like mad sticky glaze comes up in the pot, and then you like roast it for
how long for Thanksgiving? It's like 6 4 weeks, right?
She makes her own like pecan pie, homemade.
I'm trying to get like a little thing.
All the turkey. Oh my god, that'd be unbelievable. Honestly,
let's have a
thing. We're gonna need a side plate, please, guys.
Before we go, is there anything? Something I just thought about on the way done was like, is there anything that you think fans of The Last Kingdom would want to know that they've never been able to hear?
Ooh.
Like, I just, because I felt like there's going to be some people, like, no one of my favourite shows, the stars I'm talking about, yours are like, give me some, fucking.
Yeah, what's it really like?
Yeah, like, or just even like, anything that comes to mind. You know your fans better than anyone could.
Yeah. So. I mean, I think the fan base is like unbelievable. We have the kindest people. In fact, I had the honor of meeting quite a lot of fans in America when I was just gone. I did an event in Kansas City. It was like the first ever like Last Kingdom convention purely for us.
Oh my
God.
God.
Yeah.
Wow.
And we had like 6 or 7 actors, and all these amazing people came from all over America, but all over the world. Some people came from like Brazil, and they all came to sort of like hang out with us for 3 days and meet us and talk to us. And we had all kinds of like panels. You had like one-on-one, or then it was like me and then 15 fans, and then there's a massive panel with like 200 people, you know, all of us like chatting with mics. And it was so sick because you could tell they just loved, even though I played a villain, they were so kind. They were just like, but we love this story. We love to hate her. We love that you're doing that. We adore it. We love all the different dynamics between all the characters. That's what we're here for. Like, it wouldn't be a show if everyone was just like, la, 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 la. Like, they loved all that. And so they were asking about, you know, what's it like in between takes? Because I think that's when it's crazy to see somebody go into character and then it drop. And then you're like, oh, and then they're putting on again and then drop. And they're like, what do you do in between? And we are just the silliest people. And like, I wished I could share the amount of ridiculous videos, because it's just too many of them, of us just prattling around. And we're honestly just like best friends. It's such a family vibe. And like, everyone is the sweetest person and very, very silly. And like, people are so talented. And it's weird because I don't do a lot of scenes with like the Danish characters, like a lot, because they're like the other sort of side of the story.
Yeah.
So I love it when the show comes out and you see all the Viking-y stuff. For me, I'm like an audience member then in that light, because I'm like, I haven't seen any of this. So I see all the Danes like, ugh. And then when you catch them like in the makeup trailer, like, hello, like sweet Scandinavian actors, like they're so cute. And it's just like amazing to see them transform. And like the pride I have for everybody in the show is like crazy. So I guess I'd just say that we are all a bunch of silly sausages, and nobody is a villain, especially not the people that play the villains. We're actually probably the silliest.
Yeah, right,
probably. So that's what I say to the fans is anyone that plays a villain as well, just give them some love, because they're just doing all they can.
Eliza, honestly, we're so honoured to have you. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you so much for having me. Honestly, what an honour. Lucas and Shean and Jam, thank you so much.
See you every week.
Yeah, every week, please.
Literally, honestly. If you're listening to this, you can support the show on Patreon at patreon.com/thinkitymedia, I think. We're available. I think so. You'll find it. I'll write it every somewhere. We're on Spotify, Apple Music, Apple Podcasts, even all the places. Listen, I'm too overwhelmed by how much I enjoyed the conversation to do the plug-in bit. So it'll be in the description. Love you, Shean.
Bro.
Love you, Eliza.
Love you guys.
Love guys.
Thank you so much for listening to Spill. Take care.
Peace out, guys.
Bye.